Oh, hello, my friends. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you are enjoying the videos, so please like, share, and subscribe. Hey guys, sorry for not uploading any videos past week. I've been ill and couldn't make any content. So this video is coming even when target of previous video is not completed as an apology. Now for this video. The target for this part will be 250 views and 10 likes and comments. Next part will come only if the target is completed. So like, share, subscribe, and comment if you want the next part. Also, please watch other videos of the channel. I am sure you won't be disappointed if you give them a listen. With this out of the way, let's get back to the story. A day before the Legacy Gate opened, Oswald Barony was a barony located on the eastern outskirts of East Shire. After 3 decades of hardships, this territory had started to show signs of improvement after it was reclaimed by Luna's grandparents. Even so, life wasn't that easy. The crop yield wasn't that high, and people had to rely on hunting and fishing in order to get by. But despite all these difficulties, the people lived relatively peaceful lives, all thanks to the efforts of the Oswald family, who oversaw these lands. Currently, the Oswald family was having an afternoon break after a hard day of work. I'm a bit worried about Luna going into that Legacy Gate in Nightfall Academy, Luna's biological mother, Irene, said with worry. Don't worry, Luna's second mother, Brianna, replied. Our Luna is not that weak. I'm sure she will be fine. Luna's father, Bruce, sipped his cup of tea, but although he didn't show it, he was also very worried about his one and only daughter. You are a bunch of worrywarts, Luna's grandmother, Rhea, commented. Isn't that boy Ethan with her? I'm sure he will protect my granddaughter. The moment Rhea mentioned the boy's name, all the men in the family, including Luna's grandfather, Philip, frowned. Luna regularly sent letters to her family, and there were times when she mentioned the handsome young man in her writing. When Ethan was trapped in the lands of Alastair, Luna often shared her worries with her family, which let them see that the boy had managed to worm his way inside the angelic beauty's heart. Luna's 2 mothers and her grandma were very supportive of her. In their replies, they even encouraged her to stay strong and believe that Ethan would be able to return. The men in their family, on the other hand, secretly wished that Ethan would remain trapped in the past so that he would not bother Luna ever again. They were truly overprotective of the only young woman in their family, and if anyone tried to court Luna, all of them would face their wrath. Suddenly, they heard a faint shriek from the sky. As a wizarding family, all of them were quite familiar with this call. Everyone then looked in the direction where they heard the sound, and they were surprised to see a white raven descending from the sky. Dantalion gracefully landed on top of their table and bowed its head respectfully to Luna's 2 mothers and her grandma. Oh my, a white raven, Rhea said with a smile as she looked at the creature whom she was seeing for the first time in her life. What brings you here, little one? Dantalion bowed his head again before walking towards Rhea in order to show her the metallic cylinder tied to his leg. Luna's mother, Irene, carefully removed the cylinder from the raven's leg and opened it. The cylinder was similar to a storage ring that allowed the ravens to carry messages and packages all across the wizarding world. When the lid of the cylinder was opened, a sealed letter appeared in Irene's hand. I'm not familiar with this seal, Irene muttered as he looked at the red seal that had the image of a trident embedded in it. Just open it, Luna's second mother, Brianna, commented. I'm very curious about who the master of this white raven is. Irene nodded and opened the letter. Aside from a handwritten letter, there was also a storage ring inside, which surprised her. For the time being, she set aside the ring and read the letter out loud for everyone to hear. Greetings from someone who loves your daughter, Luna, very much. Burn that letter, Bruce fiercely said after hearing the first line of the letter, which made his wife, Irene, chuckle. Oh, come on, Irene commented. Don't be like that. I'm very curious about the person who has the guts to send this kind of letter to us. Perhaps this white raven belongs to one of our daughter's suitors. That's why I said to burn it, Bruce stated. I'm not going to hand my daughter to anybody. That's right, Phip nodded. My granddaughter is too good for those teenagers in the academy. I also agree. My sister deserves someone better, Luna's brother, Dennis, protested. I second that. Luna's other brother, Eric, supported the others. The ladies of the family wanted to roll their eyes at the reaction of the men. This was not the first time this had happened, and they had already gotten used to how the men shielded the only young woman in their family. Ignore these fools, Rhea stated. Irene, continue reading the letter. Irene nodded and continued to read, which made all the men in the family gnash their teeth in anger. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Ethan Gremery. Luna had told me that she has mentioned me a couple of times in her letters, and to be frank, I am quite worried about how she has portrayed me to her family. I hope that she mentioned how handsome and talented I am. If not, then all I can say is that you don't have to worry about my good looks, because I am very confident in that department. Rhea cackled after hearing Ethan's shameless introduction. Brianna was also smiling because she found the young man quite to her liking. Irene arched an eyebrow after realizing that this letter actually came from the young man whom her daughter would often talk about in her letters. Luna only had praise for Ethan, and as a mother, she could tell that her daughter liked him very much. After a short pause, she continued to read the letter with anticipation. A few days ago, Luna told me about the difficulties that her hometown is currently facing. As her future husband, I have decided to help my in-laws so that she will not have to worry about what hardships may occur this upcoming winter. Within the sealed letter is a storage ring containing some funds that will help you buy food from the merchants that you can distribute to your people, allowing them to feel less worried about making it through the approaching change in seasons. Although you might find this action of mine presumptuous and unneeded, know that I am only doing this out of my genuine concern for my lover's mental health. I belong to a family of farmers, so I understand the hardships of our craft. Although it isn't much, I hope that you will accept my gift to help alleviate your current worries. There is a possibility that, as you read this letter, Luna and I will be about to enter the Legacy Gate. I do not know what kind of dangers we will be facing inside, but I promise you that I will protect her with my life. I also promised her that when our expedition was over, I would come with her to visit her hometown and finally meet her family. I look forward to meeting all of you, and when the time comes, I will also take the opportunity to ask for your blessings to allow your daughter to marry me after we graduate from the academy. Truth be told, I am very worried because she told me that there is a high chance that her grandfather, father, and brothers will beat me up until I am half dead the moment I introduce myself as her lover. Even so, I will not back down because I am serious about getting her family's approval. Please pray that we return safely. I look forward to meeting each and every one of you. P.S. There is this blonde guy who is trying to break my relationship with your daughter. Since Luna rejected him, he might try to bribe you all instead. I don't know what kind of background he has, but the way he talks makes me think that he came from a high-ranking noble family. But regardless of his intentions, know that Luna's feelings for me are strong, and I hope that you will not be intimidated by the blonde guy's family. Once again, do not forget the resources I have placed inside the ring. Although I grew up on a farm, I am confident that I will be able to provide Luna with a comfortable life by my side. Also, I swear upon the gods that I didn't steal from anyone. The treasures I have sent are 1/10 of the wealth that I gained when I was sent to the past. I hope that you will put it all to good use. Wishing to see all of you soon. Ethan Gremery. The men in the family all had frowns on their faces, and it was quite easy to tell that they were very annoyed. It turned out that aside from this Ethan, there was another fly that was hovering around their Luna, which they found irritating. It doesn't matter what that blonde guy's background is, Philip snorted. Who cares if he comes from a high-ranking noble family? They can kiss my foot. That's right, Bruce commented. Also, this Ethan boy is quite bold. He's just the grandchild of a farmer, and he actually dared to send us some resources. Bruce sneered. Go on, Irene. Dump everything inside that storage ring on the table. I just want to see just what kind of resources that country bumpkin sent us. Oh, shut your trap, Rhea snapped. You call that boy a country bumpkin, but have you looked at yourself in the mirror? You are also a country bumpkin. Bruce didn't dare to refute his mother because even though Rhea was already old, she would not hesitate to whack him with her wooden cane if she got annoyed. Irene smiled and picked up the ring. Luna said that Ethan is one of the pillars of the first years, Irene said. That means that he receives a monthly stipend from the academy. The resources that he spoke of might be the gold coins that he had saved up for the past few months. Such a sweet child. Indeed, Brianna smiled. Because he grew up as a farmer, he understands the hardship of our people the most. Irene nodded, and without another word, she activated the storage ring, dumping everything on the table. At first, everyone thought that they would just see a few dozen gold coins, which was expected of the stipend that Ethan received from the academy. But as seconds passed by and the ring's content still hadn't stopped pouring on the table, all of their eyes opened wide like saucers. The sound of tinkling coins reached everyone's ears as the gold coins piled up on top of their table. Ethan had given the Oswald family a tenth of his treasures, which was a very large amount. When he was back on his grandparents' farm, he had only shown Chloe's parents and his grandparents a fifth of his wealth. This amount was already enough to fill up their living room, making Chloe's parents seriously consider Ethan as their daughter's fiancé. Now, this same scene was happening in the Oswald's residence, making everyone unable to comprehend what they were seeing. Just who is this boy? Bruce, who had wanted to strangle Ethan earlier, couldn't help but ask in a hoarse voice. Is he really the grandchild of farmers? This was the same question that was currently inside everyone's head, and unfortunately, none of them had the answers to these questions. Finally, the day of the Legacy Gates opening had arrived. The students of Nightfall Academy, as well as the students of the other academies, gathered at the Grand Arena, where a teleportation magic circle was created. Nero and the staff of the academy had no intention of letting anyone know the exact location of the Legacy Gate, so they found a way to teleport everyone there at the same time. They also made enough preparations to bypass anyone who'd try to use tracking or any kind of similar spells that might divulge the location of the gateway. When Brynhilder Academy students reached the arena, most of the students, and even their headmasters, glanced in Ethan's direction. Ever since he won the duel against Cedric, the handsome young man rarely left the residence and kept a low profile. When Ethan glanced in the direction where the students of Nightfall Academy stood, he saw Cedric looking at him with a calm expression on his face. Lillian had told him that his brother still hadn't given up on Luna, so Ethan decided that he'd make the other party understand that he stood no chance against him. Ethan, who was walking hand in hand with the angelic beauty, smiled and pulled her close to him. He then kissed Luna's cheeks, which made Cedric frown. Truth be told, the handsome young man wanted to kiss Luna's lips in front of everyone, but he understood that she was too shy for that. He didn't want to make her uncomfortable, so he settled for a peck on the cheek, and then provocatively looked at Cedric with a smirk on his face. Luna, who received Ethan's kiss, smiled and leaned her body against him, closing her eyes. According to the staff of the academy, once they entered the Legacy Gate, all of them would be teleported to random places. Meaning, even if Ethan entered the Legacy Gate while holding Luna's hand, the two of them would still likely appear in different locations. He was quite worried about this, since the angelic beauty could only rely on the magic bracelets that she had charged up in preparation for this trip. The last full moon had been 2 weeks ago, but Luna was able to charge up 6 magical bracelets that she could use for herself. Of course, she had also charged 2 bracelets for Ethan, which were currently stored inside his storage ring. Lilith, are you sure you won't be separated from Luna after entering the Legacy Gate? Ethan asked the black cat that was currently hiding in the angelic beauty's shadow. "Don't worry, Master," Lilith replied. "My ability is special. Even after we enter the gate, I will be with her to protect her." "Understood. I leave her in your care." "I will protect her with my life, Master. You have my word." "Good. I'll give you plenty of pats when the expedition ends." Tilde. He had already made all the preparations he could think of to ensure Luna's safety. He had even bought a pair of guardian rings, similar to the rings that he had bought for Chloe before they started their mission. These rings were special and had a few extra benefits like curing poison, increasing miasma resistance, creating a barrier, as well as allowing them to sense the location of the other person who held the pair to their ring. Unfortunately, it had a limited range of 1,000 meters. If Ethan were to appear too far from Luna's location, it would be difficult to regroup with her inside the legacy domain. Lillian, who was standing beside Cedric, felt envious of Luna because she wanted to be hugged by Ethan as well. However, since Ethan asked her to keep their relationship a secret for now, she decided to fight her urge to approach him. "Once this expedition is over, I will definitely make my move," Lillian thought. "But I hope that I appear somewhere close to Sir Ethan. If we were together at the start, how wonderful would that be?" The beautiful young lady couldn't help but feel her cheeks burning after having some thoughts. Fortunately, her brother was so busy looking at Luna that he didn't notice the blush that crept up on his sister's face. While everyone was busy eyeing each other, Nero cleared his throat and addressed everyone. "We will now send you to the location of the Legacy Gate," Nero stated. "However, before that, all of you must sign a death waiver, stating that no matter what happens inside the Legacy domain, it will not be the fault of Nightfall Academy. Lastly, you must also sign a contract stating that you will not harm any members of my academy. Of course, this condition is nullified in the case of self-defense. If any of my students break this agreement, you are free to eliminate that person, and I will not bat an eye." Nero paused as he scanned the faces of the headmasters and the students in front of him. "I know that all of you have grudges against each other and will probably use this opportunity to eliminate the seeds of your rival academies," Nero stated. "I do not care if you do this, but leave my students out of it. Lastly, the Legacy Gate will only be open for a month. If you wish to leave, just break the rune tablets that will distribute before you enter the gate. Once you break it, you will automatically be teleported back to the exit. The runes will also tell you how many days remain until the portal closes. Take note that if you are unable to leave at the specified time, you will have to wait for an entire month before we can open the gates again. I hope that all of you remember this. There will be no third chances. If I were you, regardless of whether you are able to gain something inside or not, I would leave before the portal closes. Your life is more precious after all." The students of Nightfall Academy nodded in understanding, while the students of the other academies eyed their rivals. Most eyes landed on Ethan. Ever since the battle ended, the academies who had a grudge against Brynhildr Academy had marked him as someone that must be eliminated at all costs. They would ensure that this precious seed would not be able to return alive and grow to become another Professor Reinhardt, whom many considered to be the strongest wizard of the current era. "All of you stand in the arena," Nero ordered. Everyone obeyed and waited for the headmaster to make his last-minute preparations. "See you all in a month," Nero said before raising his hand. Magna Itineranter. The magic circle glowed with power, and a second later, everyone standing in the middle of the arena disappeared without a trace. When Ethan regained his senses, he found himself inside what seemed to be a spacious cavern. By his side was still Luna, and she was looking around their surroundings just like him. Several wizards, wearing the uniforms of Nightfall Academy, had positioned themselves near a purple portal, which reminded Ethan of the nexus that he and Lily had entered. The only difference was that the Legacy Gate was purple, while the Nexus Gate was white. According to the books he had read in the library, not all Legacy Gates had a purple portal. Some of them had other colors of the rainbow. as well as unique colors such as gold and even black. Black legacy gates were considered the most dangerous of all legacy gates because the chances of dying inside were very high. As for the gold portal legacy gates, they were said to be the most terrific due to the treasures that could be found inside them. But regardless of the color of the legacy gate, one fact remained the same. Anyone who would dare challenge it had the opportunity to get a legacy. Just like how Ethan obtained the Tide Bringer's legacy when he entered the Nexus with Lily, other people could also obtain a legacy. Of course, luck also played a role in it. As to what kind of legacy it would be, no one really knew. The results were completely random, and it was up to luck if it perfectly matched the person who was able to obtain it. Please form 5 lines, one of the staff of Nightfall Academy stated. We will now distribute your escape runes. If you are to face any danger that you are unable to escape, just break the runes and it will send you directly to the exit. These runes have already been synchronized with the weave of magic inside the legacy domain, so it is perfectly fine to use them. After hearing the staff's words, everyone lined up to receive their escape runes. This was a life-saving artifact, and they would be foolish to not get one before they start their expedition. When it was over, the staff then asked everyone to follow them deeper into the underground den, where the legacy gate was currently located. You guys sure got lucky, one of the headmasters commented as he followed the staff of Nightfall Academy. For your academy to be able to find a legacy gate this deep under the earth is a worthwhile achievement. The staff didn't reply and simply walked in front of everyone. It was a complete secret how they were able to find the legacy gate, and they had no intention of sharing this information with anyone. Seeing that he wouldn't be able to get any information from the staff, the headmaster only smiled and no longer pried. A few minutes later, the group arrived in another spacious cavern. However, this time, they found themselves staring at an underground lake. In the center of it was a purple portal that was 5 meters tall, illuminating its surroundings with a faint light. You can now enter the portal at your leisure, the staff of Nightfall Academy said. I hope that you gain something good from this experience. As soon as permission was given, the students of the different academies didn't waste any time and got into their flying broomsticks to fly into the portal. Cedric and Lillian gave Ethan and Luna one last glance before they, too, entered the portal that would lead them to the legacy domain. Remember this, Professor Barrett said in a serious tone. All of you must return alive. If you ever find yourselves in a situation where your life is in danger, don't hesitate to use the escape rune. All of you are still young, and you will still have many opportunities in the future. But those opportunities will not matter once you're dead. So choose to live and return with me to the academy alive. Do I make myself clear? Yes, Professor. Professor Barrett nodded. Go, and may fortune smile upon all of you. Rowan gave his sister a glance before flying towards the portal. Henry and the others followed suit, leaving only Ethan, Luna, and Emma behind. Let's go, Ethan said softly as he picked up Luna in a Princess Carry before walking towards the lake. Emma saw this scene but didn't react, simply summoning her broom and trailing behind Ethan. As his promised one, she would only enter the portal after her master had entered it first. The handsome young man wasn't in a hurry to enter the portal right away, since he knew that he was likely to be separated from Luna. Because of this, he casually walked on the surface of the water, making the older people who were left behind look at him with interest. When Ethan was only 2 steps away from the portal, he looked at Luna with a worried look on his face. Don't worry, Luna said as she cupped Ethan's face. I'm not a fragile vase that will break so easily. Perhaps not wanting to see Ethan look at her with worry, Luna took the initiative to kiss his lips, making the older people who were watching them smile. Ah, youth, one of the professors said. What a lucky brat, another professor commented. That girl is a beauty. The other professors and headmaster didn't make any comments and simply waited for Ethan to enter the portal. Stay safe, Ethan said softly. You too, Luna smiled. After saying their final goodbyes, Ethan walked inside the portal, still carrying Luna in his arms. He hoped beyond hope that, when he opened his eyes on the other side, the angelic beauty would still be in his arms. Emma followed behind Ethan. But before she entered the portal, the emblem on her chest glowed faintly, which was hidden from the eyes of the people who were watching them from behind. Somewhere inside the legacy domain, Luna found herself standing in what seemed to be a forest. The first thing she did was activate her guardian's ring in order to check whether Ethan was within its range. Unfortunately, the ring didn't respond, which made the angelic beauty sigh in her heart. Just as she was thinking about what to do next, she heard something move behind her, so she immediately took out her wand and took a fighting stance. "Wait, don't shoot!" A familiar voice called out to her, and a few seconds later, Elyon emerged from the trees and smiled at the angelic beauty in front of her. "I'm fortunate to meet someone I recognize right at the beginning," Elyon said as she approached Luna. She then glanced around expectantly, hoping to see the handsome young man with long blue hair. Perhaps, reading her thoughts, Luna shook her head. "He's not here," Luna stated. "That's quite unfortunate," Elyon sighed in disappointment. "Well then, should we start looking for our companions?" Luna nodded. Just like the guardian ring on her hand that allowed her to sense Ethan's location, Professor Barrett had also given them special emblems that were pinned on their uniform. This allowed them to sense if any of their schoolmates were within the vicinity. To Luna's disappointment, she didn't manage to sense any of her schoolmates, which made her sigh. "I sense someone from Nightfall Academy somewhere in the east," Elyon said. "Do you want to come with me for the time being? It would be safer if we traveled together." "I will go with you," Luna replied. She also understood that traveling alone inside the forest was a risky move. At least, she was sure that Elyon would be her ally for now, since the latter wanted to win her approval to become Ethan's fiancé. Thinking about this, she decided to accompany her until they left the forest and met up with one of her companions. Truth be told, Luna was feeling anxious. She wanted to reunite with Ethan or any of her schoolmates as fast as possible because it would make her feel safer. As if sensing her anxiety, a calm and dependable voice spoke inside of her head. "Don't worry, mistress," Lilith said. "I'm here, I will protect you." "Thank you, Lilith," Luna replied. "I'm glad that you are with me." Luna had almost forgotten that Ethan had left a protector to stay by her side in order to keep her safe. Now that she was reminded that Lilith was still with her, the worries in her heart decreased by a significant margin. She then followed behind Elyon, who was currently focusing on the connection that she had sensed a while ago. The legacy domain was said to be a very large place. As to how large it was, no one really knew. The only thing that they knew for certain was that there were powerful entities within that world. And one of them was the monster that the Nightfall Academy planned to capture at all costs. When Ethan opened his eyes, he found himself standing on the peak of a mountain, overlooking a desert. He gazed at this scenery for a few seconds before shifting his gaze to the young lady, who was standing behind him. "I don't think that you being here with me is a coincidence, correct?" Ethan asked in a curious tone. "That's right, Master," Emma affirmed. "Me being here with you isn't a coincidence." Ethan stared at his promised one with a solemn gaze. Right now, Emma's usual bored assistant librarian look had changed into that of a beautiful seductress. Her original clothes were gone, replaced by quite revealing clothes that would easily charm anyone who set their gazes on her. Ethan noticed the mark that was faintly glowing on her chest, which was the proof that she was his promised one. The same mark was shining on the back of his right hand, clearly reacting to the emblem of his promised one. Regardless of the time and place, as long as a probability exists. "I can appear by your side anytime," Emma explained. "This is the connection we have through our bond, Master. For example, if we were to enter the same legacy gate or any domain, I'll always have the option to appear by your side instead of being teleported to a random location." The handsome young man nodded in understanding. He didn't mind Emma being with him because they were on the same side. Also, she was a seer. Having her around would help him navigate the domain better. "Can you tell me where Luna is?" Ethan asked. Emma reluctantly nodded, slightly envious of her master's care for his lover. She already anticipated that Ethan would ask about Luna's location, but she didn't think that it would be the first thing that he would ask from her. But her master's order was absolute, and she would obey it without fail. Emma raised her hand, and a golden bowl filled with water appeared in front of her. This was the same golden bowl that Ethan had taken from the Scarlet Citadel, which was the main headquarters of the necromancer he had defeated. Ethan had gifted Emma this artifact, and the young lady treated it like her precious treasure. It was the first gift that her master had given her, and it held tremendous value in her eyes. Soon, an image appeared on the surface of the golden bowl, allowing the handsome young man to see Luna, who is currently riding on a flying broom with Lillian. So she's with Lillian, Ethan thought, feeling slightly relieved. He knew that the beautiful young lady from Nightfall Academy was now on his side and would in no way betray him. This was the one thing that he had asked of Lillian before they went into the Legacy Gate. He made her promise to never betray him and the people important to him. This was the condition he asked of her in exchange for acknowledging her as one of his lovers. Lillian happily accepted this condition because she had no intentions of betraying Ethan. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the young beauty's feelings for her future lover were stronger compared to the feelings she had for her older brother, Cedric. Although she would be very reluctant to choose between her family member and Ethan, Lillian would definitely side with the handsome young man because her future was now at stake. It will be difficult to meet up with them because they are currently on the other side of this world, Emma frowned. I didn't expect this domain to be so big. Luna is currently 2,000 miles away from us. What? Ethan couldn't believe what he was hearing. Are you sure about this? Emma nodded. I'm sure of it. If we travel nonstop using a flying broom, it will probably take us 3 to 4 days. However, flying without stopping is extremely difficult and exhausting. It's simply unrealistic. Also, there is one more thing that we need to consider. The young lady's expression became serious before she continued her explanation. In order to get to her, we need to cross this desert. Unfortunately, there is a restriction placed on it preventing flight, Emma explained. So we have no choice but to walk until we reach the edge of the desert, and that will take us several days. That estimate doesn't take into account the strong monsters within this territory that we might need to fight, further increasing our travel time. The more Ethan listened to Emma, the deeper his frown was. If he thought optimistically, he might be able to reunite with Luna after 2 weeks. But there was also a possibility that he wouldn't be able to meet her until the deadline to return ended in a month. Master, I suggest that we look for the people who live inside this domain, Emma proposed. We will still head in Luna's direction, but we will also keep an eye out for villages, towns, and cities. Since this is a legacy domain, there is a chance for us to get a fortuitous encounter, allowing us to gain something from this trip. Ethan knew that Emma was right. Since they were already inside the legacy domain, it would be best to be on the lookout for opportunities that might give them some ancient artifacts or other priceless treasures. Are there any of our people near our location? Ethan asked. Emma lightly tapped the surface of the water, creating a ripple. Soon, a pink-haired lady appeared on its surface. Ethan's face turned solemn when he saw Nicole. The young lady was currently fighting against 2 wizards who belonged to one of the academies that had a grudge against Brynhildr Academy. Although she was outnumbered, Nicole was able to hold her ground and even counterattack her enemies. Where is she? Ethan asked. Emma paused for a bit and closed her eyes. A few seconds later, she pointed to the north. 100 miles in that direction, Emma stated. Unfortunately, we won't be able to come to her anytime soon. The seductive beauty then glanced at her left and right side. Ethan, who also noticed that they were not the only ones who were teleported on the mountain, sighed. 5 people, composed of 3 wizards and 2 witches, had surrounded them. They were all riding on flying brooms, and from the looks of their uniform, they belonged to the academies whom Professor Reinhardt had warned them about. "We just arrived, and you people are already looking for a fight," Ethan asked. "Are you sure you want to mess with me right now?" The wizards and witches glanced at each other. They weren't allies, and their academies were also not on friendly terms. The 3 wizards were part of an allied group, while the 2 witches were from the same academy. However, they had a common enemy, and that was Ethan. "I propose a truce between our academies," a witch said as he eyed Ethan with a mischievous smile on her face. "Let's all eliminate the students of Brynhildr Academy first. After that, we can all go our separate ways, deal?" The 3 wizards smiled and nodded their heads in understanding. "We have a deal," one of the wizards agreed. "You can kill the guy if you want, but we want the witch alive." "Men," one of the witches sneered, because it was very easy to know what the horny dogs were thinking. However, in the end, she nodded her head. "Try to not kill him either," the witch stated. "You can break his arms and legs, but keep his life. He can still be useful as a stud horse." The wizards smirked, because it seemed that all of them wanted to gain some benefit in this temporary alliance. "Very well," the wizard replied before pointing his wand at Ethan. "Try not to die easily, Ethan Gremory. Your fulfilling life as a stud horse is about to begin." All the wizards laughed in disdain as they looked down on the handsome young man, who had already summoned his sea god's trident. "Emma, can you handle those 2 witches?" Ethan asked as he held his weapon firmly in his hands. "Yes, master," Emma replied. "These 2 bitches are not my match." Emma glared at the 2 witches, who had wanted to turn her master into their personal property. Such provocations were not something that she would turn a blind eye to, especially when topped with the current situation where Ethan's life and future were at stake. A strong gust of wind blew on top of the mountain, and a moment later, Ethan and Emma launched their attacks at their respective targets. Originally, the 5 wizards and witches thought that they would easily be able to handle Ethan and Emma if they all worked together. Unfortunately for them, the 2 proved to be difficult opponents. Ethan had conjured fairy wings on his back and attacked the 3 wizards in the air. Emma, on the other hand, summoned dark spears and hurled them at the 2 witches, who had unleashed 2 fireballs at her. The dark spears pierced the fireballs, negating their effects. However, her 2 opponents had already expected this to happen. Using their flying brooms, they circled Emma and attacked her blind spots. This act made the seductive beauty understand that she wasn't facing regular witches. Their strategy was on point. Even she, who was confident in her spell-casting ability, was having difficulty finding a chance to counterattack. Her opponents were not only swift, but they also had deadly combination attacks. "Everyone here is an elite," Emma thought as she summoned 2 dark shields to block the 2 flame spears that came from 2 opposite directions. "It will take me a while to subdue these 2 B** teachers." She then gave Ethan a sidelong glance before focusing her attention on her 2 opponents. Emma was worried that her master might be in trouble since they were fighting elites, but her worries disappeared the moment she noticed that the handsome young man had the upper hand in the battle. Similar to what Ethan had done when fighting against Cedric, the handsome young man summoned 5 clones of himself using fey magic. These clones would then bombard their enemies with countless purple fireballs, forcing them to dodge. Since they didn't know who among the clones was the real Ethan, the only thing they could do was attack any of the clones with the hope that they were targeting the right person. Of course, the clones weren't idle and actively evaded the spells that were aimed in their direction. Soon, loud explosions reverberated in the skis and across the top of the mountain as the battle intensified. Unknown to the teenagers who were fighting against each other, a faint rumbling sound was spreading in the mountain. A minute later, dozens of stone golems rose up from the ground. These stone golems then started to hurl rocks that were the size of an adult's head at the teenagers who were fighting in their domain. The The two witches that were fighting Emma weren't able to react on time and got hit by the golem's attacks. One of them screamed as she was pushed off of her flying broomstick due to the impact of the stone that hit the side of her body. The witch then raised her hand in an attempt to call out to her flying broom. However, before her broom could even come to her location, a dark spear pierced through her shoulder, making her scream in pain. Fortunately for her, the other witch dove down and caught her midair before flying away in haste. Emma clicked her tongue at the missed opportunity to kill one of their enemies. If she hadn't evaded the rock that was flying in her direction, her dark spear would have pierced her enemy's chest instead of her shoulder. They managed to get away, Emma thought before she, too, summoned her flying broom. It was dangerous to stay on the mountain, so she decided to fly as high as she could in order to avoid the flying rocks that could potentially cause serious injuries to anyone who was hit by it. Ethan, on the other hand, used this opportunity to intensify his attack against the three wizards, who found themselves facing a difficult choice. Either get hit by Ethan's purple fireballs, or get hit by the stones that the golems were throwing in their direction. It was nearly impossible to fly upward, because Ethan held the upper ground. With countless purple fireballs descending from the sky, not knowing which was real or not, and the stones that were being hurled by the stone golems, the three wizards decided to stick together and construct a protective dome around them. Ethan's purple fireballs and the stones from the stone golems collided with their barrier, creating cracks in its surface. Emma, who had regrouped with Ethan, also unleashed dozens of dark spears, which merged with her master's purple fireballs, creating flaming purple spears that shattered the barrier upon impact. Cries of pain and anger reverberated in the sky as the three wizards were hit by the purple spears. Two of the wizards lost their grip on their flying brooms and fell toward the mountain. The moment they crashed on the ground, the stone golems immediately mobbed them, punching their bodies until their bones broke. Soon, blood dyed the ground under their bodies, making the last surviving wizard scream as he flew toward the desert in panic. However, as if hitting an invisible barrier, the flying broomstick that the young wizard was riding on took a nosedive towards the desert. A minute later, his body crashed on the sand, sending some of it flying upwards due to the impact. Ethan didn't know if the wizard survived the fall or not, but he didn't take any chances. Fairy ignis impetum. Ethan pointed his wand at the fallen wizard and unleashed a barrage of purple fireballs, while Emma summoned a dark shield to protect the two of them from the stone golems that had finished killing the two wizards who had landed in their midst. A series of explosions erupted in the desert, sending sand flying in every direction. "Let's go," Ethan ordered. He and Emma then flew away to escape the angry stone golems, who were still throwing rocks at them from the mountaintop. The two didn't fly toward the desert. Instead, they flew toward the direction where the two witches had escaped. Ethan had vowed that he wouldn't take the lives of others needlessly unless he was forced to do so. But since they had decided to attack him, he would show them no mercy to prevent future troubles from arising. Emma was quite satisfied with Ethan's decision and flew alongside her master. Although she missed the kind and somewhat naive Ethan, she wouldn't trade the current one for the old one. Right now, they were facing enemies from all sides, and being merciful would work in their favor. A few minutes later, they managed to catch up with the fleeing witches, who now regretted their decision to attack Ethan as soon as they discovered him. "This isn't over," the witch shouted as she and her schoolmate broke their escape runes at the same time. The two were enveloped by a flash of light. A moment later, they disappeared completely, escaping Ethan's and Emma's pursuit. "I'm sorry, Master," Emma said. "They managed to get away because of me. Please punish me for my incompetence." Ethan shook his head. "You have to understand that we are fighting seeds from the other academies. It will not be easy to defeat them. Although they managed to get away, we no longer have to worry about them returning. You can only enter the Legacy Gate once a month, so even if they receive medical treatment, They cannot enter this domain again until the next time it opens. Forget about them for now, and let's prepare to cross the desert." Emma nodded and followed her master, who was flying towards the base of the mountain. Ethan planned to regroup with Nicole before they headed to Luna's location. Although he was confident that his sparring partner would be able to protect herself, he was still worried about her safety. Since she was the nearest ally they could find, it was of utmost importance that they reunite with her. They weren't aware that, similar to what happened on top of the mountain, battles between the different academies who had entered the Legacy Gate with them were also starting to take place. The wizarding world was not a very peaceful world. Nero didn't only plan to let the academies help them distract the 3 boss monsters inside the Legacy domain and serve as their cannon fodders. He also wanted the different academies to fight against each other, killing their seeds and weakening their overall combat strength. Of course, the other academies knew about his intentions, but they didn't care. Using this opportunity to eliminate the geniuses of their rival academies would guarantee that their own academies would be able to get an advantage when it came to gathering the resources that could only be found inside a Legacy domain. Somewhere within that small world, a creature that stood over 6 meters tall opened its eyes. A vile chuckle escaped its lips as soon as it felt the powerful magic powers of the students who had entered its world. 2 other presences also awakened, but unlike the vile creature who coveted the magic powers of those that had entered their domain, the only thing they wanted to do was to kill. They were both prisoners and protectors of the land. Their only goal was to eliminate the trespassers who dared to enter their sanctuary, which once belonged to the mythical race of the Tuatha De Danann. The sound of explosions reverberated across the valley as Nicole maneuvered her flying broom as low as possible, making use of big rocks and trees as cover. Her flying broom was a special model, custom-made by the artisans of her family. It was faster than most brooms, so she could easily outfly her opponents. The only downside was that due to its speed, it was harder to control. However, this problem didn't affect Nicole in the slightest. She had been using this flying broom since she was 10 years old. By now, her level of mastery had gotten to the point where she could use it like it was part of her body. "Damn," a witch who belonged to Darkmoon Academy cursed. "Don't let her get away." 6 other students, composed of 4 wizards and 2 witches, unleashed a barrage of spells at the pink-haired beauty. But her precise control over her flying broom allowed her to evade the spells without too much problem. These students belonged to the Ashenheart and Lionheart academies, and both were part of the alliance made up of 5 academies, their common ground being their hatred toward Brynhildr Academy. All their students were briefed to eliminate any students belonging to Brynhildr Academy. They were also ordered to kill any other students from the other academies who would get in their way. Although these students were not their priority, they were still their rivals when it came to gathering resources inside the Legacy domain. They believed that as long as there were no witnesses to tell their tales, no one would know about their wrongdoings inside the Legacy domain. 10 minutes later, Nicole had finally increased the distance between them, making her pursuers click their tongues in annoyance. "What should we do?" a wizard asked the witch whom they had designated as their team leader. "What else can we do?" the witch snorted. "Chasing after her is useless. Let's just focus on exploring this world to look for treasures. However, the mission is still in effect. Any students belonging to Brynhildr Academy must be killed without mercy." Her comrades nodded their heads in agreement before flying westwards. The Legacy domain was composed of 5 territories: the Deathseeker Forest, the Emir Mountains, the Harrowing Desert, Jenga Valley, and Able Plains. According to the headmaster of Nightfall Academy, the human settlements were scattered across various places. However, most human settlements could be found in Able Plains. This was also the main destination of most of the students in order to gather more information about the Legacy domain. According to Nero, the Able Plains was a piece of land somewhere in Midgard. At least, that was what he believed. However, this land seemed to be isolated from the rest of the world, preventing its citizens and creatures born within it from leaving the domain. Of course, there were various loopholes to this rule. If any of the academies really wished to bring someone or something out of the legacy domain, they could do so, as long as they had the right tools to do it. This was also why Nightfall Academy had assembled a team that would capture one of the boss monsters inside the domain. As long as they were able to capture it, their academy would gain a guardian beast that would strengthen their forces, help them clear dungeons, conquer legacy gates, as well as intimidate their enemies. Brynhildr Academy had a Valkyrie protector, which could be considered its guardian. Of course, Nightfall Academy had one of their own as well. These guardians couldn't leave their territory that easily, making them the ultimate protectors against any kind of threat. However, if Nightfall Academy were to gain a powerful beast that came from a legacy domain, this beast could wander freely across the land, allowing the academy to maximize its potential. Nicole, who had just escaped her pursuers, didn't even bother to look behind her because she knew that none of them could catch up to her. For now, should I look for a settlement in the Able Plains? Nicole thought. I guess that is the best course of action for now. There is also a possibility that the others are making their way to one of the human settlements as well. Currently, Nicole was located in the Janga Valley, which was located in the easternmost region of the domain. The Emir Mountains were in the south, while the Harrowing Desert extended from the south up to the southwest, leading to the Deathseeker Forest. If someone headed north from the desert, they would enter Able Plains, where the human settlements were located. The Deathseeker Forest was a vast forest located in the western region of the domain. It was also the location of the boss monster that the students of Nightfall Academy were planning to capture. Nero had hinted that his students would be hunting their target in the Deathseeker Forest and asked the other academies to cooperate with them. Of course, this cooperation wasn't free. Nightfall Academy was very willing to compensate these academies for their help, and some headmasters were quite interested in Nero's offer. Professor Barrett told them that they could help Nightfall Academy if an opportunity presented itself. However, if their lives were in any danger, they must abort their mission right away. Nero didn't share too much information with the others because information was power. Only those who were willing to help them were given this information, allowing them to get a better idea of the layout of the legacy domain. While Nicole was headed towards the Able Plains, Ethan and Emma had finally entered the Harrowing Desert. Their wizard robes and hats were not enough to shield themselves completely from the heat of the sun, but it was still better than having nothing at all. The dry and hot wind blew past their bodies, and it was very uncomfortable. Because of this, Ethan once again summoned his sea god's trident, creating a cooler environment that extended up to 10 meters around him. Fortunately, he kissed the fairies before coming to this trip, so his magical reserves will not be a problem, Ethan's other half commented. Right, Sebastian stated. As long as he doesn't exhaust his magic power fighting against humans and monsters, he will be able to cross this desert without a hitch. I mean, a carefree hike through the desert. What could possibly go wrong? Ethan, who was walking silently, suddenly felt the ground underneath his feet start to shift, as if something very big was moving under the sand. Ethan's other half and Sebastian quieted down after sensing what just transpired. A sigh escaped the handsome young man's lips before glancing at Emma, who had already taken out her wand. Suddenly, an eruption took place several meters in front of them, sending sand flying in every direction. Ethan and Emma stared at a 10-meter desert worm, who had sensed them walking over the sand. Sebastian, next time don't say anything like, "What could possibly go wrong?" Ethan said through telepathy. Okay, Sebastian replied as the blue jewel on the sea god's trident glowed with power. Let's deal with this monster first. Ethan nodded, as he and Emma took the initiative to cast spells towards the giant monster. The sandworm was one of the elite predators of the Harrowing Desert. Although it didn't have eyes, and only relied on the vibrations in its surroundings. It had already marked the two teenagers who had come into its territory as its lunch. Ethan deftly evaded the sneak attack of the sandworm from beneath. He could feel the subtle tremors that were happening under the sand, and through that, he inferred when and where the monster would strike him. The handsome young man jumped to his right side and rolled on the sand to distance himself from the giant monster. As soon as the monster made its appearance, Emma instantly bombarded it with dark spears, which made the desert worm screech in pain. Its hardened exoskeleton was very tough, but Emma's dark spears still managed to pierce its defenses. However, their piercing power was not enough to fully penetrate its body. At most, the spears only managed to penetrate the sandworm's body 3 inches, which was not enough to deal a fatal blow to the monster. Even so, it was enough to draw blood and cause it pain. The sandworm decisively burrowed itself into the sand, swimming in it like fish in the water. Once the monster had taken its refuge, Ethan started to run and jump, creating as much vibration as possible, forcing the sandworm to aim at him. Simply put, the handsome young man was using himself as bait, while Emma dealt the blows to the monster's body. In the beginning, it was Emma who volunteered to be the bait, but Ethan rejected her proposal. He didn't want the young lady to take unnecessary risks. Between the two of them, Ethan had the most battle experience, and he was confident that he would be able to evade the sandworm's attacks when it rose from under the sand. A minute passed, then 2, but the giant monster didn't rise again from its hiding spot. Ethan, who was paying close attention to his surroundings, suddenly pointed his trident at Emma, casting a water ball that pushed the young lady backward, just in time to evade the sandworm's attack on her left side. After suffering repeatedly from Emma's attacks, the sandworm had decided to target her first. It wanted nothing more than to crush the annoying pest that attacked it each time it resurfaced. Emma, who had almost gotten eaten by the monster, didn't bat an eye and aimed her wand at the monster, whose massive body was now out in the open. "Tenebrous Hasties," Emma chanted, and over a dozen dark spears flew toward the sandworm, burrowing themselves in its body. The monster screeched and shook its body in an attempt to dislodge the dark spears that had pierced its defenses. This, however, was a mistake. "Rising Dragon Strike," Ethan roared as he hurled the sea god's trident toward the monster, who had stayed above ground longer than usual. The trident was imbued with the divine power of the Tidebringer, creating a water dragon that pierced through the sandworm's body. The giant monster screeched in pain as a fountain of blood spilled onto the desert sands. The water dragon circled around the still screeching sandworm, and this time it pierced through the monster's head, ending its misery. When the towering monster crashed toward the ground, Ethan and Emma finally breathed a sigh of relief. The desert was completely devoid of water, so Ethan had no choice but to tap into the power of the Tidebringer to strengthen the power of his attacks. Fortunately, he had ample magic power inside his body, so he didn't suffer from any backlash. Usually, when Ethan used the Tidebringer's legacy, he'd consume more magic than usual. The moment his magic power was completely dried up, he would suffer from a symptom called magic thirst, which was similar to the blood thirst of a vampire. Fortunately, all he needed to do was kiss a witch to fix this problem. But Sebastian warned him that if his magic thirst wasn't sated within a day, it would cause him to have a migraine, which would only worsen with time. Of course, this migraine would also disappear once he had absorbed enough magic power. But it would take more than kissing one person to fix this problem. If Ethan's magic circuits hadn't improved after receiving the Tidebringer's legacy, and hadn't absorbed a portion of Lily's origin magic when the two of them made love for the first time, he would definitely be having trouble right now. Ethan's other half even joked that every time the handsome young man absorbed the origin magic of others, the faster his magic circuits would recover. Of course, Ethan only half believed his other half's words. He couldn't refute that, after absorbing a portion of Lily's origin magic, His magic circuits had recovered enough to allow him to store magic for 3 whole days, and the magic leakage wasn't as bad as before. But since the procedure to absorb a witch's origin magic was through a union of their bodies, it was impossible for Ethan to test his other half's theory for the time being. He didn't want to treat his women as tools to fix his problem. If they were to really take that step in their relationship, he would gladly do it. However, he would not take the initiative to force them to make love with him, just because there was a possibility of his magic circuits fully recovering after their union. Also, he still didn't fully trust his other half, knowing that the latter was still keeping secrets from him. The only thing that he was certain of was that his other half was on his side and would not hesitate to help him if the need arose. After the monster stopped twitching, laying completely still on the sand, Emma walked toward its body as if looking for something. A moment later, she picked up a red crystal orb that was the size of an adult's hand. This was the monster's magic core, which wizards and witches could use to power up certain magical artifacts. The stronger the monster was, the more valuable the magic core was. Emma then presented the magic core to Ethan, and the latter accepted it gratefully. "Master, what should we do with the body?" Emma asked. The handsome young man pondered for a bit. "Can it be eaten?" Ethan inquired. "No, master," Emma replied. "This monster's body is very hard, and its flesh is fused with sand. Eating it is the same as eating sand." "Is that so?" Ethan glanced at the giant creature with a frown. A minute later, he shrugged and stored it inside his storage ring. Although the monster's body had taken a lot of space inside his ring, Ethan decided to still take it for the time being. If it didn't really have any use, then he would just discard it when he needed more space. After a short rest, the two continued their journey towards the north, hopping to reunite with Nicole before they made their way towards the Deathseeker forest, where Luna was waiting for them. "We're here," Lillian said as she looked down at a clearing within the Deathseeker forest. Luna, who was also riding on Lillian's broomstick, didn't see anyone in the clearing, despite the fact that Lillian said that one of her comrades was there. Sensing that something was amiss, Lillian took out her wand. "Prepare for anything," Lillian said as she raised her guard. Luna nodded and took out her wand as well. The young lady then controlled her flying broom to slowly descend into the clearing, keeping her guards up and vigilantly eyeing their surroundings. Luna did the same, readying herself for any possible attacks that might come from the shadows of the trees. "I'm glad that it's you, Lillian. Seeing you here puts my heart at ease." A familiar voice reached their ears. Suddenly, a faint fluctuation appeared at the center of the clearing, and a handsome young man with short blonde hair and blue eyes materialized out of thin air. "Brother," Lillian breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. She only knew that someone from the same academy was in the clearing, but not who it was. As a wizard who specialized in light magic, it was very easy for Cedric to bend and reflect light in order to make himself invisible to his surroundings. When he saw Luna riding on Lillian's broomstick, a surprised expression appeared on his face for a brief second before it was replaced with a smile. Luna, on the other hand, frowned after seeing Cedric. He was the last person she wanted to meet inside the Legacy domain. When she asked Lillian if she knew the identity of the person who was reacting to her emblem, the young lady said that she didn't know. Luna knew that Lillian didn't lie, and that she truly had no idea that they would be meeting her brother in the clearing. "We meet again, Luna," Cedric said. The angelic beauty simply nodded her head in acknowledgement. If possible, she didn't want to say a word to Cedric, especially after what he had done to force Ethan into a duel. Seeing her reaction, Cedric couldn't help but smile bitterly. He could tell that the girl he liked was still angry at him, but there was nothing he could do about it. Just as Cedric was about to say something, several flying broomsticks appeared in the sky, making him frown. Luna and Lillian, who also noticed the newcomers, disembarked from the flying broomstick and held their wands at the ready. Well, look who's here," one of the wizards, who seemed to be the leader of the group, glanced at the 3 teenagers in the clearing. 2 students from Nightfall Academy and 1 student from Brynhildr Academy. I guess we got lucky, another wizard commented. Looks like she got separated from her group. The wizard looked at Luna as if he was licking her body with his eyes. This made the angelic beauty frown because she had noticed the uniform of the students. They belonged to Stormchaser Academy, Darkmoon Academy, and Ashenfang Academy. There were other students who didn't belong to these 3 academies, but based on the calm, unthreatened expressions on their faces, she could tell that they were on good terms with each other. 10 people, Luna thought. This will be hard. Seeing that the other wizards and witches were looking at her with sneers on their faces, it could only mean one thing. They wanted to eliminate her right here, right now. Perhaps thinking that this was a good opportunity to regain her favor, Cedric stepped in front of Luna and summoned his sword and shield. If you wish to fight her, you need to get through me first, Cedric stated in a calm manner. Wow, a knight in shining armor has come to protect the damsel in distress, a witch said in disdain. However, her eyes betrayed her emotions. She felt envious that someone like Cedric would actually step up in order to protect Luna from them. We have no bad blood with Nightfall Academy, one of the wizards said with a smile. Just surrender that beauty to us, and we'll let you hunt your boss monster in peace. We might even help you if you do that. That's right, another wizard commented. Don't worry, we won't kill her. How can we possibly do that to a beautiful girl? We'll just have fun with her and allow her to accompany us for a month. Cheers of agreement rang out from the group. Clearly, they had very bad intentions towards Luna. I would not do that if I were you, Lillian said as she, too, stepped in front of Luna, holding her wand at the ready. She is our friend. If you attack her, then we will treat you as our enemy. The group of wizards and witches looked at Lillian before laughing out loud. Oh, I'm so scared, a wizard said in sarcasm. What are we going to do? 2 students from Nightfall Academy are standing in our way. Leader, the contract said that we are not allowed to kill or seriously injure the students from Nightfall Academy, right? A witch asked. That's right, the wizard who led the group replied. Then, as long as we don't kill or seriously injure them, it will not be considered breaching the contract, right? The witch inquired again. The wizard nodded, and a smirk appeared on his face. Paralyze those 2 and leave them be. We only need to take the girl from Brynhildr Academy. After giving his orders, the group immediately took action. It was 10 versus 3. But Cedric and Lillian decided to fight and defend Luna against those who wished to capture her. Impediendum. Orange orbs of light flew from the tip of 10 wands as they all aimed to paralyze Luna, Lillian, and Cedric at the same time. The handsome blonde teenager raised his shield and shouted, Murus Lucis. A dome of light surrounded him and the 2 girls, blocking the spells that were aimed in their direction. Use stronger offensive spells and break that barrier, the leader of the group shouted as he made a slashing motion with his wand. Ventus Vulnus. A 3-meter-long wind blade flew in the direction of the dome and exploded the moment it made contact with it. The other students also unleashed powerful offensive spells, slowly chipping away at the barrier of light that Cedric had erected. Half a minute later, cracks started forming on the shield's surface, which meant that it wouldn't be able to last much longer. Seeing this scene, Luna took a deep breath before raising her wand towards the sky. Etherius Draco. An 8-meter-long dragon materialized above Luna's head and immediately let out a draconic roar. With a wave of her hand, the dragon charged toward the leader of the group, who was busy giving orders to his comrades. Luna imbued a lot of magic power into creating the dragon, solidifying its body and allowing it to deal significant damage to those it hit. The angelic beauty specialized in moon creation magic. Due to her overwhelming magic capacity, she was able to concentrate her magic power, allowing it to take any form that she wanted. The more powerful the form, the more it drained her magic. This was one of the downsides of having a powerful ability that could only be used when conditions are met. If she were fighting during the full moon, Luna could easily summon 4 of these dragons to fight for her. However, her limited magic power hindered her from creating many copies at once. Even so, her creation was enough to threaten their enemies. The dragon flew quite fast, and before the leader of the group could even react, its tail had already lashed out in his direction. Presidium. The 2 wizards from Stormchaser Academy pointed their wands in front of their leader and swiftly erected a blue barrier to protect him from the dragon's tail attack. The sound of glass breaking could be heard, and the barrier broke apart. However, the leader of the group took advantage of the slight delay in order to retreat a safe distance with his flying broom. Aquapila Verberare, Lillian chanted, and summoned a barrage of water balls in order to break apart the group's formation. Sagitti Lucis, Cedric joined his sister and unleashed countless arrows of light towards their enemies, forcing them to evade his attacks. Truth be told, after losing the duel in the Grand Arena, their impression of Cedric had decreased drastically. They had heard that he was a prodigy, but after his fight with Ethan, the other academies no longer treated him as a genius. However, now that they were facing the unending stream of arrows from him, they realized one thing. This guy is strong, the leader of the group thought. The other members of his group had the same thought. Ethan made it look like fighting against Cedric was easy. But now that they were on the receiving end of his attacks, they immediately realized that he wasn't a foe to be taken lightly. They then decided to take him out first, but that was a big mistake on their part. Luna and Lillian weren't any weaker than Cedric, especially the young lady who had awakened a part of her legacy. Puvia Imbrem, Lillian shouted as she pointed towards the sky. A complete legacy would have allowed her to summon moderate to heavy rain in order to assist her in battle. However, since her legacy was still incomplete, although she had become stronger, she still couldn't use her full potential. A light drizzle fell from the sky, which the group of wizards and witches ignored. They didn't detect any harmful effects from the pitiful droplets of rainwater that were falling over their bodies. However, none of them expected what happened next. Accuse Pluvia. The falling rain suddenly transformed into thin needles that pricked her opponents in places that weren't covered by their robes. The needles stabbed their hands, necks, and faces, which made the wizards and witches cry out in pain. Cedric glanced at his sister in surprise, because he never knew that Lillian had this trick up her sleeve. He had also noticed that his sister's magical attack was stronger than ever, which made him wonder how she was able to become strong in such a short period of time. Although she wasn't as powerful as him, she wasn't far from it either. Aside from his sister, Luna surprised him as well. He thought that the angelic beauty wasn't that strong of a witch, but after seeing her control the ethereal dragon made up of pure magical energy, his impression of her rose higher by a notch. While their enemies were busy trying to evade the arrows of light and the needle-like rain, the ethereal dragon mercilessly used its claws, tail, and jaws to deal physical damage to them. A witch and a wizard had already been sent flying by the dragon's attacks, and both of them received serious injuries from the blow. Had they been hit without their magical robes and protective charms, the dragon might have fatally wounded them or shattered their bones. "Retreat!" the leader of the group shouted as he flew toward the witch who had fallen into a tree and carried her away. His comrades hastily obeyed his order, and one of them grabbed the other injured wizard and flew away in haste before the dragon could target him. They didn't plan to go far and only made a strategic retreat in order to heal their comrades and change their strategy. Luna, Lillian, and Cedric knew this as well, so they decided that it would be best if they left the clearing as soon as possible to find a safe place to hide. Suddenly, Luna felt a faint connection coming from the south. One of her comrades had come within the range of the magical pins that Professor Barrett had left them. "Let's head south," Luna said with determination. "One of my schoolmates is there." Cedric frowned. "We should just hide. If we travel in that direction, we might come across the academies that are targeting the members of your academy." Lillian didn't say anything because she was torn between Luna and Cedric. In the end, she remained silent and simply waited for Luna's decision. "You don't have to come with me," Luna said as she summoned her flying broom. "I can go there by myself." Without another word, she sped towards the south, leaving Cedric and Lillian behind. "Brother, what are we going to do?" Lillian asked. Cedric's frown deepened, but in the end, he summoned his flying broom. "We're going after her," Cedric stated. "We can't leave her alone." Lillian sighed in relief, because she also wanted to stay by Luna's side and earn her recognition. Soon, the two teenagers caught up with Luna and flew on her left and right side. Luna gave them a casual glance before shifting her gaze to where she could sense her schoolmate. They flew as low as possible, flying just a few meters above the forest floor. Doing so would prevent the group of wizards and witches, who attacked them earlier, from sensing which direction they headed. A few minutes later, they saw someone flying in their direction, also riding a flying broom. This time, it was Luna's turn to breathe a sigh of relief, seeing that it was her brother flying towards her. Rowan, who recognized her sister, felt as if one of his worries had disappeared. He had been very worried about his sister, so seeing her safe made him feel relieved. "She's with the students from Nightfall Academy," Rowan thought. After what happened between their two academies, there had been a slight tension within their relationship. Brynhildr Academy was a neutral academy, and this neutrality extended toward Nightfall Academy. Both of them coexisted without pointing their wands at each other, until the incident where Cedric challenged Ethan to a duel. Also, Rowan automatically didn't like anyone who was trying to court his sister. The moment he saw Cedric, the first thought in his mind was to take Luna away and look for their other acquaintance inside the legacy domain. "I'm glad you're safe," Rowan said as soon as his sister arrived in front of him. "Are you hurt anywhere?" He noticed that her robe had a few rough patches here and there, and he was worried that his sister might have gotten injured in battle. "I am fine, brother," Luna replied. "But it's not safe here. We're running away from a group of 10. She briefly explained what had happened, and how Cedric and Lillian sided with her during the exchange. When her brother heard about this, his gaze turned cold, and a faint killing intent oozed out from his body. "If we don't find a place to hide, it is very possible that they might be able to hunt us using a tracking spell," Luna said with a worried look on her face. This was only her first day inside the legacy domain, yet one of her magical bracelets had already been drained by half. If possible, she wanted to save her magical batteries until the very last moment. Rowan wanted to say, "Let them come," but since he didn't want to risk Luna getting hurt, he just nodded his head in agreement. "I know a good place to hide," Rowan stated. "I found myself near a cave when I arrived here. Although it's a bit far, it's well hidden. We can rest there for the time being." Rowan eyed Cedric and Lillian and wondered if the two of them would come with them. Although he didn't like the handsome blonde teenager, he still kept appearances since he couldn't deny that they had protected his sister when she was targeted by the wizards and witches from their rival academies. "Are you going to come with us?" Rowan asked in a calm manner. "Or are you going to look for your teammates?" Cedric gave Luna a sidelong glance before nodding his head. "We will come with you," Cedric replied. "There is strength in numbers, and we still don't know if that group will track us down. For the time being, let us cooperate until we find more of our teammates. It never hurts to have more people on our side." "That's what you say, but do you think I can't tell that you just want to be with my sister?" Rowan snorted internally, but kept his thoughts to himself. "Okay, come with us," Rowan replied. "Just don't drag us down." Rowan then flew in the direction of the cave, where he first appeared after entering the legacy gate. Luna, Lillian, and Cedric followed behind him. Luna's older brother had been briefed by Henry that the Deathseeker Forest was the most dangerous region of the domain. It was vast and extended for hundreds of miles, and it was also the location of the boss monster that Nightfall Academy was planning to capture. Brynhildr Academy had no intention of engaging such a powerful monster, but currently, Rowan and Luna were stuck inside it. Without knowing where this monster would appear, it would be best to stay with a group of people because it was safer that way. Rowan had seen many magical creatures inside the forest, ranging from dire bears, dire wolves, and other creatures that would pose a grave threat to ordinary wizards and witches. This was a pretty normal thing considering that the Legacy Domain was a closed-off world. Yet he was told that none of these creatures would be able to stand up against the boss monster, who was somewhere within the forest. A monster patiently waiting for the right conditions to make its appearance known to the delicious prey that had appeared inside its domain. No, please don't kill me, a wizard pleaded as he tremblingly backed away. His right hand, which was still gripping his wand, had been cut off cleanly, rendering him incapable of protecting himself. Although he was in a lot of pain, he mustered all his strength to speak, knowing that if he didn't try to plead for his life, it would not only be his arm that would be lost forever, but also his life. His opponent walked toward him in a calm manner, as if enjoying the fear that was washing over his prey's body. Sensing that his opponent had no intention of letting him go, the wizard took out the escape rune from his storage ring. But before he could activate it, his other arm was cut off from his body, making him scream in pain. "You're so noisy." A moment later, a silver dagger embedded itself in the wizard's forehead, finally ending his life. Henry raised his hand, and the silver dagger flew back to him. He then flicked it to the side, removing the bloodstains that had stuck to its blade. "Sir Henry, must we really kill them?" Brock Blackwell, one of the first years who had been drawn by the ballot box in Brynhildr Academy, asked. "We could have just let them go." Henry glanced at the young man, who belonged to Terra Manor. This manor specialized in healing, life, light, and plant magic. Among the manors in the academy, they were generalized as the pacifists. In times of peace, being a pacifist was good. However, a pacifist might not want to kill people, but that doesn't mean that others wouldn't want to kill you. "Listen, Brock," Henry said as he picked up the escape rune from the ground. "I'm guessing you have never killed anyone before in your life, right?" "Oh, of course not. Why would I kill people?" Brock replied. Henry smiled. "I think I now understand why the ballot box in the academy chose you to become part of this delegation." "You do?" "Yes, I guess you are either fated to die here or leave this place alive after knowing that not everyone you treat kindly will treat you kindly in turn. The wizarding world isn't like that, Brock, so I will give you a choice." Henry walked toward the first year, making the latter subconsciously take a step back. The head prefect of Dud Manor then handed the escape rune to Brock and smiled. "You have 3 choices," Henry stated. 1, follow me despite knowing that I will continue to kill people. 2, explore this place on your own and survive for 1 month. Last but not the least, 3, break that escape rune and leave this place. That way, you won't have to experience any hardships. You can continue to live in your rose-tinted world, turning a blind eye to the real way this world works. Brock looked at the escape rune that Henry had placed on the palm of his hand and gulped. He was tempted to break the rune and finally leave, but if he did that, wouldn't the others in the academy think badly of him? Only 3 days had passed since they entered the Legacy Domain, and he also hadn't achieved anything. When he appeared, he was transported to the edge of the Able Plains. This made him safe from being targeted by the students from other academies who were focused on heading toward the human settlements found near the center of the plains. He had experienced a fair share of battles, but he only fought against gray wolves, which were ordinary animals, not even magical beasts. Henry had found him on the 2nd day. At that time, he had been very happy, relieved that he was no longer alone. However, his glee didn't last long, with his companion actively hunting down wizards and witches from their rival academies and killing them without mercy. Unlike Ethan and the others whose goal was to gather resources and magical artifacts inside the Legacy Domain, Henry's goal was to eliminate all their enemies. Since Brock was traveling with Henry, he witnessed the murders right before his eyes. The Mage Slayer of Brynhildr Academy had already killed 6 people, and the first year was certain that the limbless man just now wouldn't be the last. "Why must we kill each other?" Brock asked. "Can't we all just live in peace? This domain is very large. There's no need to fight each other for resources." Henry sighed after hearing Brock's words. "I guess this is where we part ways," Henry replied. "Take care of yourself, Brock. At the first sign of trouble, don't hesitate to break the escape rune to leave this place." Henry then turned around to walk away. He didn't even bother convincing Brock to follow him because he didn't have time to babysit anyone. The more enemies he killed, the safer his companions would be while exploring the legacy domain. He didn't want any of his team members to die, but he believed that they were chosen by the ballot box for a reason. As to what reason that was, only the artifact powered by fate magic knew. Before completely leaving, he looted the wands of the wizards and witches whom he had just killed and stored them inside his storage ring. After a month, he would exchange these wands for merit points with Professor Reinhardt, the one who had tasked him with this cold-blooded mission. Brock watched his protector go with a sad expression on his face. As someone raised in a kind and loving family, he never thought that there would come a day when he would need to point his wand toward people in order to kill them. He was similar to Ethan when the latter just arrived at Brynhildr Academy. Kind, naive, and brimming with optimism. But after Ethan had faced the dark side of life, changing the way he viewed things, the 2 first years were no longer similar. Although he was still kind, his naivety had greatly decreased, and he no longer looked at the world through rose-colored lenses. He had killed people and suffered from it. After breaking free from that darkness with Lily's help, the naive teenage boy had turned into a man who could now command the storm and raging tides of the sea. Brock sighed as he placed the escape rune into the pocket of his wizard robe and summoned his flying broom. He decided to look for the nearest human settlement and get to learn more about this domain from the locals. This was the only logical choice he could think of at the moment. The chubby young man with dark brown hair hoped that he would not encounter anyone from their rival academies on his way to his destination. He didn't want to kill anyone, but something was telling him that sooner or later, he would need to make a choice that would change his life forever. The days in the desert were hot, but the nights were very cold. This was Ethan's first time traveling in the desert, so this experience taught him a lot. He had plenty of resources in his storage ring, like food and water, but Emma told him not to use them, to which he agreed. Ethan's promised one taught him how to look for prey and water in the desert for survival. As someone who was sensitive to the presence of water, Ethan could easily find water if he really wanted. However, since he learned that any skill was worth having back in the lands of Alastair, he decided to ask Sebastian to temporarily seal his ability to sense water as he and Emma traveled through the harrowing desert. The seductive beauty didn't hold back and taught Ethan everything that she knew. The Meredith clan trained all their children's survival skills that would keep them alive in almost any place in the world under any situation. They were once a nomadic clan, only settling when they found a safe haven to live within the territory of Ethan's great-grandfather. Since then, the Meredith clan had thrived, and their loyalty towards the handsome young man's paternal side of the family remained strong over the years. Also, Emma enjoyed this moment with Ethan. Although having a date in the desert that lasted days was something that most people didn't want to experience, for her, it was the best day in her life since meeting Ethan at Brynhildr Academy. The cold wind blew over the desert as the night deepened. Emma closed her eyes as she rested her head on Ethan's chest, while the latter wrapped his arms around her like a hug pillow. Both of them weren't wearing any clothes under the blanket as they shared each other's warmth, keeping the cold at bay. As Ethan's promised one, this was where she belonged, wrapped in her master's arms while listening to his heartbeat. On their first night in the desert, the two of them slept together but kept their clothes on. On the second night, Emma proposed that sharing body heat through direct skin contact would be more effective. She was prepared to be rejected by Ethan, but to her surprise, her master agreed to it. When she asked why he agreed to her proposal, Ethan just smiled and told her that he had already come to terms that he and Emma were stuck at the hips since she was his promised one. So instead of resisting the inevitable, he should just accept it and get used to it as soon as possible. However, he made one thing clear. Neither of them would do anything inappropriate and would simply cuddle with each other. Emma had confidence in her seductive body, so she thought that this would be a good opportunity to make Ethan fall head over heels for her. Her master was a healthy young man after all, so it would be normal for him to have thoughts about the opposite gender, especially while holding a naked beauty in his arms. Emma was more than ready to give her master her first time, anytime, anywhere, even if it was in the desert. However, it seemed that she underestimated Ethan's self-control. True to his word, the handsome young man didn't do anything inappropriate and simply hugged her. Now, on their third night together, his stance hadn't changed and remained the same. Although she didn't want to admit it, she was starting to lose her confidence in her womanly charms, making her think that he wasn't interested in her. Perhaps due to her loss of confidence, a tear slid on Emma's face, which fell onto Ethan's chest. Her body also shook as she desperately tried to hold back the sadness in her heart and the tears that were threatening to fall in full. At that moment, she felt a hand lightly pat her head. "If you're crying because you think that you're not an attractive woman, then brush off that thought," Ethan whispered softly. "You are beautiful, Emma. Truth be told, I am not immune to your charms. If not for the fact that I promised Chloe, Luna, and Lily that I would not be chasing after girls' skirts on this expedition, I might have given in to the temptation and embraced you." Emma, who heard Ethan's soft and kind words, felt as if the dam that had been holding back her emotions had finally burst, making her cry on Ethan's chest. The handsome young man continued to pat her head and held her close, allowing his promised one to release all of her pent-up emotions from the past few days. Her insecurities and her worries turned into tears in her eyes, making her heart feel lighter. Several minutes later, she finally managed to regain her composure and raised her head to look at her master. "Thank you, master," Emma said before planting a kiss on Ethan's cheek. "Good night." She then closed her eyes to sleep. Perhaps, due to the happiness she felt in her heart and the exhaustion she felt after crying, the seductive beauty fell asleep in just a few seconds. Ethan listened to Emma's peaceful sleeping breaths before he, too, closed his eyes to sleep. Deep inside his sea of consciousness, Sebastian and Ethan's other half did a fist bump. Ethan wasn't an expert when it came to women, and the people who told him about Emma's worries were none other than his two greatest allies and two greatest critics. Although they weren't the ones who told Ethan what to say to Emma, they still made sure that he understood her feelings, allowing him to tell her the words she needed to hear. "Man, that was smooth," Sebastian said, "but not as smooth as the Tide Bringer. Back then, that guy only needed to smile at the ladies and they would swoon on the spot." "Well, he's still young," Ethan's other half replied. Also, Lily trained him well. Making love to that wild beauty for more than a year built up his resistance to ladies quite high. Even though Emma's body is more curvaceous than Lily's, he is no longer a virgin who would blush at any naked woman he sees. "True," Sebastian nodded, "but do you think he will keep his word?" "About what?" Ethan's other half asked. "His promise to only have 5 wives and 1 concubine." "He will keep it," Ethan's other half smiled with confidence. Sebastian arched an eyebrow. "What makes you so sure?" Ethan's other half didn't answer right away and stared into the distance. It was as if he was looking at someone who was currently watching Ethan's life story unfold right before their very eyes. "That's because he is a man of his word," Ethan's other half said. "Even if this world is going to be destroyed, he will keep that promise." Sebastian was still half in doubt, but he was more than willing to see if Ethan would really carry out his promise till the end. According to his estimate, Ethan and Emma would finally be able to leave the harrowing desert tomorrow. After that, they would be able to use their flying brooms again and fly to the nearest human settlement in order to find Nicole. Truth be told, Sebastian and Ethan's other half were quite worried about Luna. Unlike the handsome young man's other lovers, the angelic beauty could only use magic on the nights of the full moon. Also, the Deathseeker Forest was the most dangerous place in the domain because the strongest boss monster was located there. Emma's scrying magic was blocked in the desert as well, so she wasn't able to check Luna's current situation. They could only hope that she was able to reunite with some of her teammates, who would protect her not only from the monsters of the world, but also from the monsters who wore human skin. Monsters that coveted her beauty, power, and innocence, and wished to claim it as their own. Ethan and Emma had finally crossed the harrowing desert by the 4th day and reached the nearest human settlement around noon. It was just a small town, and at most, Ethan estimated that there were only around 1,000 people in it. Upon arrival, they instantly noticed several wizards and witches from the other academies who must have arrived before them. Of course, among those students, the pair recognized the uniforms of the academies of their rivals. These people looked at Ethan with wary gazes. Ethan knew that there was a possibility of a fight breaking out, so he didn't lower his guard. The residents instinctively knew that these people were foreigners. Their clothes and their presence were very different from theirs, and they also spoke a different language. Despite these foreigners speaking a different language, they were able to communicate with them without too much trouble. It was as if there was a translation mechanism within the legacy domain. When the foreigners spoke to each other, all the locals heard was gibberish. But every time these foreigners talked to them, they were able to understand them perfectly. Suddenly, Ethan and Emma sensed a connection that was moving in their direction. It was not a single person, but 2 of them. They decided to just wait from their spot so that they could reunite with their teammates, boosting their ability to defend themselves just in case a fight broke out. To their credit, their rival academies were also not in an antagonistic mood, even moving away after glaring in their direction. Unlike Brynhildr Academy, which could only sense each other, their rival academies were able to communicate with each other over long distances. The reason why they got to have this advantage was because it was achieved through taboo magic. Magic that required specific conditions, such as ones that involved human sacrifices, to manifest. For the students of the Dark Academies, the citizens of the Legacy domain were similar to cattle. There might be a few of them who were able to use magic, but the majority were ordinarius or people without magic. Of course, even if they were using taboo magic, no one would know as long as there were no witnesses. However, although they could communicate from great distances, there was only one message that these people had sent, and that was, "The Mage Slayer is hunting us down." Because of this, the students of the other academies had become more wary, especially toward the students of Brynhildr Academy. They understood that they were not the only ones who were doing the hunting. They were also being hunted down, and the messages that they received didn't bode well. Several of their comrades had already died. One of them was personally killed by Ethan, while the others were killed by the stone golems. It also didn't help that Ethan looked at them as if they were prey. They had seen how the blue-haired teenager had fought against Cedric in the grand arena and understood just how powerful he was. Although he was at the top of the list of those whom they must kill inside the Legacy domain, they also knew that they had no chance of winning against him unless they formed a group with strong fighting abilities. 10 minutes later, 2 witches landed several meters away from Ethan and Emma. They were none other than Nicole and Garnet, the one who went by the name of Scarlet Witch. Seeing these 2 powerful allies made Ethan smile. He was certain that with the 4 of them working together, it would be very hard for their enemies to win in a life or death battle. "I finally found you," Nicole said with a smile. "It's really hard to know who we are going to meet with just our artifacts." Garnet also sighed in relief. She truly suffered a lot these past few days. She had met a few enemies as well, but she didn't dare to fight them alone. Instead, she ran away as fast as she could. Fortunately, she was lucky enough to meet Nicole along the way. With their teamwork, they were able to drive her pursuers away. "Where did the two of you appear?" Garnet asked with curiosity. "We appeared in the Emir Mountains," Ethan replied. "After that, we traveled through the harrowing desert, and it took us 4 days to get here." "Is the desert that big?" Nicole inquired. "Why did it take you so many days to arrive here? Did the two of you perhaps take a stroll while enjoying each other's company?" Before Ethan could even answer, Emma beat him to it and explained what had transpired after they arrived in the Legacy domain. "After fighting against the students of the other academies, we decided to head to the Able Plains through the harrowing desert because we knew that you were headed in this direction," Emma explained. "But the desert has some kind of magic field that prevents any flying magic from working. Because of this, we can't fly across with our brooms. We had to travel by foot." Nicole and Garnet looked at their teammates with pitiful looks on their faces. That explained why the two looked exhausted and travel-worn. "Sorry, I didn't know," Nicole apologized. Ethan only smiled and nodded his head. "It's fine. The important thing is that all 4 of us are together." Nicole and Garnet nodded their heads. The more of their teammates they gathered, the better. "What do we do now?" Nicole asked. "Where do we go from here?" Nicole eyed Ethan and arched her eyebrow. She was clearly asking Ethan what he wanted to do at the moment. Naturally, Garnet noticed this gesture and also glanced at Ethan. They didn't have a leader at the moment. But since it was the handsome young man who had shown his exceptional abilities in the Battle of Manners, as well as in his duel against Cedric, the Scarlet Witch wouldn't mind acknowledging him as the leader of their group. "I wanted to regroup with Luna as soon as possible," Ethan said. "She is currently in the Deathseeker Forest, traveling with a few members of Nightfall Academy." Nicole smirked as she looked at Emma. "Is she traveling with Cedric?" When Ethan was still in the lands of Alastair, Emma was the one who had assured them that he was fine. She also mentioned in passing that she was a seer, gifted with the ability of clairvoyance and divination. "She is," Emma replied. Nicole nodded in understanding. "So what are we waiting for? Let's go and save your damsel in distress. Who knows? If you are a bit late, another Prince Charming might sweep her off of her feet." "Very funny." Ethan smiled, but this smile didn't reach his eyes, making Nicole giggle. Clearly, Ethan was very worried that Cedric might do something to Luna, and this was something that he wouldn't allow to happen. After confirming their next destination, the group of 4 took to the skis. Ethan rode on Emma's flying broomstick, while Nicole and Garnet flew on their left and right sides. Even with their speed, it would still take them 2 days to arrive at their destination. Ethan just hoped that Lillian would be able to safeguard his lover from the advances of her older brother. Little did he know, Cedric didn't even have the leeway to make any advances on Luna. One of the boss monsters, who was supposed to be in the harrowing desert, was currently inside the Deathseeker Forest, actively hunting them down. If this boss monster hadn't left the desert, there was a high chance that Ethan and Emma might have confronted it during their travels. Fortunately, they didn't. However, the people who had to face it weren't that fortunate. Nightfall Academy had already lost 2 of their people, while the rest suffered from moderate to serious injuries during the battle with this powerful monster. Cedric's group, accompanied by Luna and Rowan, was headed to the northwest portion of the Deathseeker Forest. Cedric hoped that their other teammates had already arrived at the forest so that they could join forces to defeat the boss monster. What they didn't know was that the monster that they were planning to capture was watching all of this from the side and enjoying the show. Of course, it could have joined the boss of the desert to wipe out the students, but this was something that it didn't want to do. It wanted to capture the students alive so that it could absorb their powers. However, it wanted to do that while they were tired, battered, and despairing. Since someone was already turning them into the state it wanted, the second boss monster was more than happy to watch from the side and enjoy the entertaining show while it lasted. "This monster is toying with us. a third-year student from Nightfall Academy said through gritted teeth. They had already been flying for nearly a day, but they still hadn't shaken the boss monster from their trail. Everyone was tired and wanted to rest, but they knew that the moment they stopped, another battle would begin. Right now, there were 6 people traveling together. 4 of them belonged to Nightfall Academy, and the other 2 were Luna and Rowan. Since all of them were traveling together, they decided to cooperate and escape the clutches of the monster as a team. They had met other wizards and witches along the way and warned them of the approaching danger. As to whether they believed them or not, they didn't stay long enough to confirm. The only thing they wanted was to put as much distance as possible between them and the monster. Also, leaving the other wizards and witches would also serve as a good distraction, buying them time to escape. The main reason why Nightfall Academy decided to invite the other academies was to use them as a distraction in order to deal with the boss monster they planned to capture. Yes, their purpose was to only serve as decoys and cannon fodder, while Nightfall Academy claimed the prize they were searching for. But they didn't expect that the boss monster from the desert would actually come to the Deathseeker Forest and hunt all wizards and witches that they came across. The death of Cedric's 2 teammates was so sudden that they didn't even have the chance to use their escape runes to save their lives. At first, the members of Nightfall Academy were feeling lucky for having gathered so many of their people in such a short period of time. But before they could even gather more of their teammates, tragedy struck, and now they were forced to flee in hopes that they could find their other teammates on the way. "We need to rest, brother," Lillian said with a grave expression on her face. "Even if it's only an hour, we need to rest. Everyone is exhausted." Cedric knew that his sister was right, so he nodded his head in agreement. "Keep an eye out for a safe place to rest," Cedric stated. "We will descend as soon as we find one." Everyone nodded their heads in agreement and paid more attention to their surroundings. 5 minutes later, they found a small clearing, so they decided to make camp for the time being. The first thing they did when they descended was to cast a detection spell that would tell them if a powerful creature was within 1,000 meters of them. This spell worked especially well against boss monsters because, even if they tried to hide their presence, there was still a chance that they would be detected by the spell. This was the best that Cedric's group could do for the moment, allowing them to take a breather. They had no problem with food and water, since they had prepared for this expedition beforehand. All of them had brought enough food and water to last them for a month. Of course, their supplies would last longer if they used them sparingly. "Rest," Rowan said as he sat beside his sister. "I will keep a lookout for the both of us." Luna nodded and leaned on her brother's shoulder in order to rest. Lillian watched this from the side and sighed. Unlike Luna, she couldn't lean on her brother's shoulder because Cedric was feeling a lot of pressure at the moment. Everyone was hopping and relying on him to think of a plan to change their current situation. Because of this, Lillian didn't want to act spoiled and simply leaned her delicate body on a tree, closing her eyes to rest. After 2 hours, the group was ready to continue their journey. Originally, they only wanted to rest for an hour, but since the spell didn't detect any threat in their surroundings, they extended their rest by another hour to allow them to recover better. The group once again flew northwest, hopping to find their teammates, as well as their allies who could help them fight against the boss monster. Along the way, they found 2 ladies riding on broomsticks, who were flying in the opposite direction. One was a dwarf, and the other was an elf. Cedric recognized the 2 since he had interacted with them a few times in the past. There were even times when they had to work together to conquer one of the difficult dungeons in Grandshire. Cedric's group, as well as the 2 witches, stopped flying and hovered a few meters away from each other. "Bridget, Sepharina, it's good to see that both of you are safe," Cedric said. "However, I advise you not to continue your flight path. A boss monster is wreaking havoc in the southern part of the Deathseeker Forest. It's incredibly strong, and I would greatly appreciate it if you teamed up with us for the time being. Of course, Nightfall Academy will compensate you for your troubles. I promise that you will not be disappointed. Bridget, the dwarf, and Sepharina, the elf, scanned the members of Cedric's group. Their gazes lingered a bit longer on Luna before shifting their attention to her brother, Rowan. This guy is strong, Bridget said to Sepharina through telepathy, and very dangerous. Right, Sepharina agreed. Fortunately, he is the brother of our young master's woman, so should we stay with their group for the time being? Bridget pondered for a bit. They had already done their research and confirmed that the angelic beauty was indeed one of their future mistresses. Although their top priority was to ensure their master's safety, leaving Luna when she was in danger wasn't something that they could do. Is the boss monster really strong? Bridget asked. Cedric nodded. It is a 20-meter-long giant snake with bronze scales. It usually stays in the harrowing desert in order to hunt for prey. But for some reason, it decided to come to this forest and hunt the wizards and witches that it came across. It has a very high resistance to magic attacks, but its physical defenses aren't that strong. Even so, it can burrow underground and attack our blind spots. It also has the ability to spray poison that can melt metal. Not only does it move fast, it's also very intelligent. If we are going to fight it, we need a bigger group that has high physical combat abilities. Bridget was a paladin, so she was very proficient in close combat. Sepharina excelled in the bow and arrow. She also specialized in wind elemental magic. This combination allowed her arrows to fly faster, fly farther, and deal elemental damage to her targets. Not only that, because of her elemental affinity, she could control her arrows with her will and move them as if they were part of her body, increasing their accuracy and deadliness. Very well, we will join you for the time being, Bridget stated. However, we cannot take any risks. Let us focus on increasing our numbers first. The more people we have, the better our chances of fighting against that boss monster. Cedric nodded in understanding. Now that he had managed to convince two powerful fighters to join his team, their chances of beating the bronze desert snake were high. Of course, he didn't know that the only reason Bridget and Sepharina agreed to join their team was not because of the rewards he promised. It was all for the sake of protecting their future mistress, and in turn for serving as her temporary protectors, forge a strong connection with their master. The two had also sensed that one of their colleagues was protecting Luna in secret. Although they couldn't see Lilith, they were certain that Luna's other protector was hiding inside her shadow. This was how the Orpheus clan operated, and Bridget and Sepharina were well aware of how their allied clan operated. Since Master had asked the Orpheus clan to protect this girl, it means that she is very important to him, Bridget said through telepathy. There is also a chance that the young master is also looking for her, Sepharina commented. If we stay with her, we will eventually meet up with the young master. The two smiled internally as they joined Cedric's group. Lilith, who was hiding inside Luna's shadow, smirked after seeing her two compatriots. Just as the two were able to sense her presence, she was also able to know that the newcomers belonged to the Odfrid and Argus clans. Mistress, those two are Master's allies, Lilith told Luna through telepathy. But don't blow their cover. Just know that you can trust them and that they will do their best to protect you. Understood, Luna replied. Thank you, Lilith. I will keep that in mind. The group then continued to travel together, gathering more allies along the way. Cedric planned to launch a counterattack when they had gathered 20 or more people. That way, their chances of beating the boss monster would increase drastically, at least. That was what he had believed before the terror of Deathseeker Forest made its appearance for the first time. How can this be happening? The sound of screams reverberated in the surroundings. We were winning. Powerful spells exploded in the surroundings, setting some of the trees on fire. Why did you have to appear now? A body crashed a few meters away from him, breaking him out of his daze. The young lady had long blonde hair, and blood was seeping from the corner of her lips. It didn't take long for Cedric to recognize who she was. Lilyon, Cedric ran towards his sister and immediately used recovery magic on her. Recuperatio. Warm light descended upon Lillian's body, preventing her injuries from worsening. As Cedric specialized in light magic, he was also able to use recovery and healing magic, making him a very versatile wizard. After casting the spell, Recuperatio, a second time, Cedric gritted his teeth before raising his shield in front of him. With sword in hand, he roared as he unleashed a barrage of light arrows at the boss of the Deathseeker Forest. However, the latter only chuckled at the young man's futile attempt as the bronze giant snake shielded its body from Cedric's attack. "Damn it," Cedric cursed out loud. He was about to unleash another spell when she noticed a young lady with short pink hair, standing in place as if rooted on the spot. "Luna, run," Cedric shouted. "Everyone retreat." Cedric's shout was booming, yet the angelic beauty seemed to have not heard of him as she stared in horror at the monster who had appeared in front of their group. A faint chuckle echoed through the night as a vile creature that stood 10 meters tall looked at Luna with great interest. "And no," Luna trembling muttered as her whole body shuddered. "This can't be happening. Not again, no, not again." The vile creature then turned into a black mist before reappearing a few meters away from the young lady, looking down at her with glowing red eyes. "What a pleasant surprise," the vile creature said. "There are so many wizards and witches with powerful bloodlines and legacies. How wonderful." The creature looked at Luna, Cedric, and Lillian with a greedy look on its malevolent face. "Moon magic," the vile creature said softly. "A child of light and a carrier of the legacy of rivers and lakes. With this, I will become more powerful than ever. I thank you all for coming to my domain. Worry not. All of you can consider meeting me your greatest honor. Your hearts, body, blood, and spirit will all become part of me, allowing me to ascend to greater heights. Oh, how wonderful. Living here in this closed-off domain for thousands of years has finally paid off." The creature's evil chuckle reverberated inside the forest as it shifted its attention back to the angelic beauty, whose face was as pale as a candle. "I'll eat you first," the vile creature stated. "Such young and tender flesh, I'll be sure to enjoy every part of you." Tears started to fall from Luna's eyes as she tried to move her body, but a powerful magic was holding her in place. Clearly, the vile creature had no intention of letting her go. Her trauma from her past experience didn't help either. Although she could use one of the most powerful magics in the world, in the face of this monster, she was unable to lift a finger. The boss monster of the Deathseeker Forest, who suddenly appeared while they were fighting against the giant bronze snake, was none other than the creature that Nightfall Academy wanted to capture at all costs. It was the flesh eater of the forest, the ancient Wendigo. This Wendigo was far more powerful than the Wendigo that appeared at Brynhildr Academy. Facing this monster, the fears that Luna had forcefully buried inside of her heart once again resurfaced, rendering her immobile and unable to resist the power of the creature that now controlled her will. But just as the Wendigo was about to grab Luna, a dwarf girl appeared in front of her and summoned earth spikes that jutted out of the ground, making the Wendigo take a step back. "Sepharina," Bridget shouted. Several silver arrows streaked towards the Wendigo, which were boosted by the wind element, making them fly faster and hit harder. The ancient Wendigo covered its clawed hands with dark magic and swept away the arrows that were aimed in its direction. At that exact moment, Luna's brother, Rowan, appeared behind the monster and slashed down using his bastard sword that was imbued with dark magic. Unfortunately, the Wendigo had already sensed his presence, so it stepped to the side, dodging Rowan's attack. However, the second strongest student of Brynhildr Academy anticipated the monster's move, so he paused his attack midway and slashed to the side. A chuckle escaped the ancient Wendigo's lips as it jumped back to avoid the third year's attack. "Interesting," the ancient Wendigo muttered. "Another one with a legacy, this time of dark magic. Did you all come here to offer yourselves to me?" Rowan snorted, and was about to keep attacking the ancient Wendigo when he sensed something moving under his feet. The third year then stomped on the ground and jumped backward. A moment later, the bronze giant snake emerged from the place where Rowan had just been standing. Having lost its prey, it then sprayed a poison mist at its target in an attempt to incapacitate him. Nigram Abyss. A black barrier appeared in front of Rowan, shielding him from the bronze giant snake's attack. "Take care of him," the ancient Wendigo ordered the giant snake. "I'll deal with the others first." The bronze giant snake screeched, as if acknowledging the ancient Wendigo's orders. It then started to use its tail to lash out against Rowan, forcing him back and separating him from his sister. "Now where was I?" The ancient Wendigo smiled. "Ah, right, come here, child, offer your body and magic to me." The ancient Wendigo made a gesture, and Luna subconsciously took a step forward. The monster had detected that another Wendigo had attempted to devour the young lady in the past, but failed. Of course, it didn't know how the other Wendigo failed, but it didn't matter. In fact, the ancient Wendigo was happy that the girl survived. Because of this, it would be able to enjoy a delicious delicacy that possessed one of the rarest magics in the world. "Don't go to him," Bridget grabbed hold of Luna's hand. "Snap out of its control." Luna tried to break free from Bridget's hold of her hand as she obeyed her master's order. The mind control magic of the ancient Wendigo was several times stronger than the Wendigo who had tried to devour her in the past, so Luna was incapable of resisting it. Her past trauma had also resurfaced, drastically decreasing her resistance to the mind-affecting magic targeted to her. Because of this, it was very easy for the ancient Wendigo to command her like its puppet. "You will not eat my mistress," Lilith shouted as she jumped out of Luna's shadow and transformed into a black panther. "Not on my watch." Lilith roared and Luna broke out of the ancient Wendigo's control, allowing her to regain her senses. "Take her away," Bridget shouted. "We will hold this monster back." Lilith nodded and lowered its body so that Luna could climb on her back. "Come, mistress," Lilith stated. "We need to escape from here." But before Luna could even mount the Black Panther's back, the ancient Wendigo raised its hands and created a dome, encapsulating the battlefield and preventing anyone from escaping. "None of you are going to escape," the ancient Wendigo stated as its hands and eyes glowed red. "Surrender yourselves to the inevitable." Lilith, Bridget, and Sepharina stood in front of Luna, protecting her from ancient Wendigo. Although they knew that they were not strong enough to defeat such a creature, it would have to go through them first before it could devour the body of their master's lover. A groan escaped Lillian's lips as she slowly opened her eyes. "Lillian, are you okay?" Cedric asked. "Does it hurt anywhere?" Lillian winced as she tried to prop herself up, but the stinging pain in her chest made it hard for her to move and breathe for that matter. "I think I broke a rib," Lillian replied. "Maybe I broke more than one." "Don't worry," Cedric stated. "I have already mended the injury, but it might still be sore and the pain still persists. You still need time to recover." Lillian smiled bitterly as she looked at the battle that was happening around them. After 2 days of scouring the Deathseeker forest to look for reinforcements, their group managed to increase their number to 30 people. But out of those 30 people, 5 died, while the others were injured. Some even escaped when they felt like the situation was helpless, leaving the others to fend for themselves. Now, only 10 people remained. 5 were fighting against the bronze giant snake, and by the looks of things, they would be overwhelmed soon enough. "Brother, we need to take Luna and escape," Lillian said through gritted teeth. "We can't let her die here." "Of course," Cedric replied. "But can you ride a broomstick in your condition?" Lillian nodded. "I will manage, so get her and let's leave this place." But at that exact moment, the ancient Wendigo cast a dome of black magic, preventing anyone from leaving the battlefield. Seeing that their chance of escape had disappeared, Lillian then urged Cedric to help the dwarf, the elf, and the Black Panther fight against the ancient Wendigo. Although he was reluctant to leave her sister alone, Cedric knew that this was the only thing that he could do for now. "Levis Hasta," Cedric shouted as he pointed his wand at the ancient Wendigo. Immediately, a 3-meter-long light spear materialized in front of him and flew towards the ancient monster, who was weak against light magic. This was also the reason why Cedric had been given the role of weakening the monster, allowing them to capture it at the right moment. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to properly deal with his target because the bronze giant snake was always getting in his way. With the boss of the harrowing desert being kept at bay by Rowan, Cedric could now unleash his magic that was the bane of all evil creatures. But to his surprise, the ancient Wendigo didn't even bother dodging his attack. Instead, it raised its hand and summoned its own dark spear, nullifying Cedric's attack. "You might be a child of light, but you are still a child," the ancient Wendigo said in a teasing tone. "If only you were 100 years older, then you might have had a chance of defeating me. Unfortunately, the current you doesn't have that ability." The ancient monster then spread its arms wide, and countless dark needles flew in every direction. Cedric raised his shield to block the attack, protecting his sister along with it. Bridget did the same and summoned walls of earth in front of her, shielding Luna, Sepharina, and Lilith. The ancient Wendigo chuckled as its black needles slowly destroyed the defensive spells that Bridge and Cedric had cast. In regards to raw magical power, they were not a match for the vile monster who had already lived for over 1,000 years. Soon, the black needles increased in size until they became the size of long swords. Although the two teenagers specialized in defense, they couldn't defend against something that far surpassed their level of power. Cedric's barrier shattered, while Bridget's earth walls crumbled. Both of them were hit by a black needle and were sent flying backward. Another chuckle escaped the ancient Wendigo's lips as it threw several black needles, pinning Lillian, Bridget, Sepharina, and Lilith to the trees. These black needles didn't give them any injuries, but simply bound them to the trees, preventing them from moving. The ancient Wendigo was a creature that enjoyed tormenting its prey. It wanted to bring out their fears and anxiety. It wanted to make them feel despair because it would enhance their taste when it consumed them. It then locked its gaze onto Luna once again, its red eyes glowing brighter. Again, the angelic beauty fell into a trance, and she walked toward the vile creature who wanted to consume her. Rowan roared as he tried to run towards his sister, but the bronze giant snake blocked his path, preventing him from disturbing the ancient Wendigo from finally taking its prize. Luna stopped a meter away from the monster and gazed up at it with lifeless eyes. The monster chuckled as it lowered its head, opening its mouth wide. A tear slid down the side of Luna's face as she stared at the monster that was about to take her life. In her final moments, a name escaped her lips. A name of the person she loved. Ethan. Suddenly, the sound of something breaking spread in the surroundings as a glowing trident with lightning snaking around its body descended toward the ancient Wendigo, catching it by surprise. The vile monster roared in pain as the sea god's trident dragged its body through the forest, destroying countless trees in the process. "Don't worry, I'm here." A handsome young man with long blue hair descended from the crack in the black dome and landed beside Luna. The angelic beauty was still under the control of the ancient Wendigo, but the strong emotions she felt the moment she saw the person whom she wanted to see in her last moments pulled her out of her trance, and tears uncontrollably streamed down her cheeks. Ethan, seeing that his lover was still under the Wendigo's mind control, he cupped her face and gave her a long and passionate kiss. The kiss was sweet, and yet it also tasted like blood. Clarity returned to Luna's eyes as the power of Ethan's blood dispelled the hold of the ancient Wendigo on her. He had the blood of a deity flowing inside his body, giving him certain resistance to various things, including mind control. "Better?" Ethan asked after he stopped kissing the young lady, whose face had regained some of its color. He had bit the tip of his tongue, allowing a few drops of his blood to strengthen the angelic beauty's resistance to mind attacks. "Yes," Luna replied, Thank you. Don't thank me just yet, Ethan said as he raised his hand, making the sea god's trident return to his hand. He then handed the sea god's trident to his lover, which made her tilt her head in confusion. Why are you giving this to me? Luna asked. It's because you will help me fight against that thing, Ethan replied. I can't beat it alone. I will need your power as well, Luna. Before she could even say that she couldn't fight against the ancient Wendigo, a warm feeling washed over her body. All the fear she felt against the vile creature had disappeared, and her mind was as clear as the water of a spring. Luna looked at Ethan in surprise, while the latter only smiled at her. The Wendigos have bullied you long enough, Ethan stated. I think it's time for you to pay them back, right? Or are you saying that my Luna is incapable of protecting herself? The angelic beauty smiled before nodding her head in understanding. You're right, Luna replied. They have bullied me long enough. Holding the sea god's trident with her left hand, Luna held her wand firmly on her right hand. Seeing her stance, Ethan chuckled and summoned another trident. This trident was made from magical silver, gifted to him by the king of the Magdar kingdom. It was the perfect weapon to use against undead, evil, and corrupted creatures. At that moment, several other people passed through the crack of the black dome. They were none other than Emma, Nicole, Garnet, and the head prefect of Dud Manor, Henry. With this powerful lineup, Ethan was sure that even if they were fighting against an ancient Wendigo, they would have nothing to fear. Why? Because the strongest students of Brynhildr Academy were finally here. The battle came to a brief pause after Ethan and the other students of Brynhildr Academy arrived. Rowan, who was fighting against the bronze giant snake, was finally able to sigh in relief after seeing that his sister was safe and sound. He almost felt his soul leave his body earlier, when the ancient Wendigo was about to devour his sister. So when Ethan arrived, and even when the young man suddenly kissed his sister, he didn't react too badly and even forgave him for what he did. He would rather let his sister be kissed by Ethan than be devoured by that vile creature who only wanted to strengthen itself with her powers. Cedric, who saw this scene, gritted his teeth as he held his shield and sword firmly in his hands. Lillian, who saw the handsome young man arrive at the scene, almost jumped up in joy. If not for the fact that she was still injured and that even the slightest movement brought her pain, she might have done just that. Though she couldn't help but feel envious of Luna, whom Ethan had kissed in front of everyone. But she believed that there would come a day when the handsome young man would treat her in such a way and also protect her from anything that wished to cause her harm. This touching scene was broken by an angry screech from the ancient Wendigo, who had been hit by Ethan's sneak attack. Looks like I made him angry, Ethan smirked. Why don't we make him angrier then? Luna suggested, making the handsome young man look at her in surprise. The mental, physical, and passive courage boosts that the sea god's trident instilled in its wielder made Luna braver. Luna right now was the complete opposite of the horrified young lady, who was unable to offer any resistance to the monster that controlled her body like a puppet a few minutes ago. Good, Ethan nodded before glancing at the dwarf and the elf, who had done their best to protect Luna. The black needles had been dispelled when Ethan dealt damage to the ancient Wendigo, so everyone had regained their freedom. Thank you for protecting Luna, Ethan said. I owe both of you a favor. For now, help me deal with the ancient Wendigo. Yes. Bridget and Sepharina were happy that their master had acknowledged their efforts. How about me, master? Lilith pouted. I helped too. Ethan chuckled. Of course, I'll give you lots of pats later. Let's deal with this bastard first. The handsome young man's eyes glowed blue as he tapped into the power of the Tide Bringer inside his body. He wasn't delusional enough to think that he would be able to win against the ancient Wendigo without going all out. It was at that moment when a black mist came charging toward them like an avalanche, aggressive as if it wanted to devour everything in its path. Ethan's wand hovered above him and transformed into the projection of the mermaid princess. Illumina, Ethan shouted as he charged forward. His silver spear shone with power. Rising dragon breath. Ethan thrust his spear forward, and a torrent of water emerged from the tip of his trident, colliding with the black mist that was headed in their direction. The collision lasted for 5 seconds before the torrent of water exploded, dispelling the dark mist and forcing the ancient Wendigo to return to its original form. Lunam Trebum. A silvery beam of light hit the vile creature's chest before it could even recover from Ethan's attack, sending it flying backward. Ethan was now using partial resonance with the intention of dealing as much damage as he could before his magic power ran out. His silver trident had also infused his attack with its holy property, dealing significant additional damage to any evil creature that was hit by Ethan's attacks. With the ancient Wendigo down, the other members of Brynhildr Academy sprang into action. Nicole and Henry charged forward, while Garnet summoned countless fireballs and attacked the vile monster from a distance. Ethan and Luna glanced at each other before nodding their heads at the same time. Silvery white wings emerged behind Luna's back as she flew toward the ancient Wendigo. Ethan, on the other hand, summoned fairy wings and flew alongside her. Although he was using partial resonance, the drain on his magical reserves was not that strong. His magical circuits had partially recovered after absorbing the Tide Bringer's blood essence and making love with Lily, and he was now able to fight for up to 15 minutes while his partial resonance was still active. Cedric frowned as he looked at this scene, unsure about what to do. "Brother, let's help them," Lillian said as she summoned her flying broom. "I will cover you from above." Cedric nodded, and he also charged to join the fight against the ancient Wendigo, while Lillian flew above the trees and unleashed water bullets as cover fire. The hopeless situation had been reversed completely, with the students of Brynhildr Academy dealing with the boss monster of the Deathseeker Forest. The members of Cedric's team focused all of their attention on the bronze giant snake, who was now being pushed back by Rowan's ferocious attacks, which were imbued with his anger and bloodlust. "Insolent mortals," the ancient Wendigo shouted in anger. "Know your place." The boss monster then roared, sending a shockwave that spread throughout the entire Deathseeker Forest. A moment later, loud roars, howls, and screeches spread in the surroundings as the magical creatures that had been subjected by the ancient Wendigo answered their master's call. "Garnet, ignore the Wendigo and just burn the forest," Ethan stated. "What?" Garnet asked in surprise. "Burn the forest, are you sure?" "Yes," Ethan replied. "If you don't, we will soon be overwhelmed by the number of magical beasts that are now headed in our direction. If the forest starts to burn, they'd think twice before charging in. Even they will not be able to survive such a hellish environment." Garnet frowned a bit because she was very hesitant to follow Ethan's orders. Burning the forest was a very risky move, and it might also affect them later in the battle. "Just trust me," Ethan said after seeing the hesitation on Garnet's face. "If you don't, we all die. So instead of feeling sorry for the creatures of this forest, you should feel more sorry for your family once that ancient Wendigo eats you alive." The handsome young man had no time to convince Garnet to burn the forest because the duration of his partial resonance was limited. The more the Scarlet Witch hesitated, the harder their battle would be. "Garnet, do it," Henry ordered. "I will take responsibility." The head prefect of Dud Manor was the team leader of their group, so his orders carried more weight than Ethan's. After hearing Henry's words, Garnet summoned her flying broom and flew upwards. She no longer hesitated and raised her wand, pointing it to the sky, creating a fireball that was getting bigger with each passing second. "Ignis Tempestes," Garnet shouted as her eyes glowed red with the power of the flames. The giant fireball above her head then split into countless small fireballs that rained down from the sky. These fireballs landed around the battlefield, igniting all the trees. Soon, the area turned into a ring of fire that prevented any creature from passing through it. The dire bears, dire wolves, and other magical creatures that answered the ancient Wendigo's call found themselves unable to proceed forward due to the hellish flames that were starting to expand in every direction. Seeing how resolute its opponents were, the ancient Wendigo felt its icy heart skip a beat because one of its weaknesses was fire. Most Wendigos lived in ancient forests and very cold places, and it was very rare for them, if not impossible, to be found in very dry and hot places. It might be a very strong creature and could counter most fire spells with more powerful dark magic, but it didn't change the fact that fire was still one of its weaknesses. And having a forest fire on its home turf was the last thing that it wanted to happen. Out of anger, the ancient Wendigo started to hurl dark spears in Garnet's direction in an attempt to stop the witch from burning down its home. "Don't stop, Garnet!" Ethan shouted as he and Luna used fairy fire and moon beams to prevent the ancient Wendigo from focusing its attention on the Scarlet Witch. "Burn everything to the ground if you have to." "You really want to see the world burn, don't you?" Garnet retorted. But she had to admit that seeing the flames blaze around her was making her blood boil. "Just don't regret your decision later." Ignis Tempestas. The Scarlet Witch once again unleashed a barrage of fireballs, intensifying the coverage of the forest fire. She even started laughing wildly, like a crazy witch, making the magical beasts in the forests run away in fear of being burned to ashes by the flames that were now turning the Deathseeker forest into a hellish environment. "Crazy," Cedric screamed internally. "These people are crazy." When he heard Ethan order the red-haired witch to start burning the forest, he thought that the handsome young man was just joking. However, when Garnet had indeed used one of her strongest fire spells to set the trees around them ablaze, it finally dawned on Cedric that they were very serious. Even his teammates, who were fighting against the bronze giant snake, were completely caught by surprise by this sudden change in the situation. Rowan, on the other hand, simply sneered at the giant snake that was starting to show signs of fear due to its burning surroundings. There was no solid proof that the bronze giant snake was afraid of fire, but he noticed that it was starting to pay more attention to its surroundings, and its attacks were not as intense as before. Clearly, it was considering escaping the battlefield by burrowing into the ground. However, it was afraid of the ancient Wendigo, so it was still holding on despite the heat that was starting to affect its senses. The bronze giant snake might be the boss monster of the harrowing desert, but it spent most of its time deep under the ground. Most people didn't know that heat doesn't penetrate deep underground, allowing the boss monster to stay clear of the hot temperature. Also, like most snakes, the bronze giant snake was a nocturnal creature that preferred to hunt at night. This was why it was starting to hesitate whether it should continue to fight or flee to safety. While the giant snake was thinking of what to do, a silver dagger flew toward the ancient Wendigo. Even though the dagger was aimed at the monster's blind spot and its speed wasn't bad, the ancient monster was still able to sense its presence, forcing it to step to its right side to dodge it. However, just as the silver dagger was about to fly harmlessly past its chest, something unexpected happened. Henry swapped places with his dagger and delivered a kick on the monster's chest, sending it flying like a cannon. The head prefect of the Dud Manor had the blood of a giant flowing in his veins. So every time he unlocked the seal on his body, his physical capabilities would improve tremendously. Right now, he had broken free from those shackles and was fighting at full strength. The ancient Wendigo screamed in pain as its body landed in the blazing inferno. Due to the heat in its surroundings, it was unable to transform into its mist form, which could have allowed it to escape by flying away. Left with no choice, it tried to use short teleportation to break free from the flames. However, as soon as it reappeared in a flame-free place, it found itself being impaled by a silver spear in its right leg. Rising dragon thrust! Ethan roared as Illumina's power surged, completely obliterating the ancient Wendigo's right leg. The monster instantly lost its balance, but before its giant body could fall to the ground, it transformed into a black mist in an attempt to escape, but countless moonbeams and spears of light tore through the mist like raindrops. A blood-curdling screech reverberated inside the forest as the Wendigo reappeared several meters away from them. It didn't expect to face such powerful young wizards and witches who could exploit its weaknesses. Although the red-haired witch didn't have a legacy, her control over the fire magic was very precise. Creating a forest fire not only limited the Wendigo's range of movements, but also prevented it from using its ability to phase in and out of battle while hurling dark magic at its enemies. Also, its mental attacks weren't working against its enemies either, especially the angelic beauty, who possessed moon magic and had clearly been under its mercy earlier. Luna was also giving it a hard time. Moon magic was very rare magic. Even though it wasn't one of the ancient Wendigo's weaknesses, the power behind Luna's attacks was staggering, leaving the monster unable to mount a counterattack. Also, the Child of Light was bombarding it with light spears and light arrows from every direction. In the beginning, he could easily counter these kinds of attacks, but the main problem was the blue-haired boy and the teenager who was wielding a silver dagger. The two of them were not giving the ancient Wendigo any breathing space, and all of their blows would send him flying, especially the one with the giant's bloodline. To make matters worse, the dwarf would always use earth spikes, which would pierce the monster from the ground, repeatedly disrupting its concentration. But that was the least of its worries. The elf would also unleash elemental arrows in its direction, and they were very fast and deadly, always aimed at its chest, where its heart was located. The Black Panther, who seemed to emerge from the ancient Wendigo's shadow, would also attack it in its blind spots with its razor-sharp claws. Simply put, the ancient Wendigo wanted to fight, but it was unable to because every time it tried to counterattack, it would get attacked instead. The change on the battlefield was also not in its favor, because its hiding and escape places were now limited. Perhaps, knowing that it would lose if the battle continued in this manner, the ancient Wendigo decided to go all out and roared. A blizzard emerged out of nowhere, bringing the visibility down to zero. Sizzling sounds could be heard in the surroundings as the snow transformed into water, dousing the flames that were burning around them. However, even with the blizzard, the flames stayed strong and even prevented the storm from expanding. This unbearable environment of snow and fire made it hard for everyone to continue fighting. However, there was one person who was unaffected by it. Rising Dragon Strike, Ethan roared as he jumped high up in the air and thrust his trident downwards. Lily had taught him to fight even when his vision was obstructed, so he knew what to do in this kind of situation. Also, he had two helpers inside his sea of consciousness, and both of them had very strong magical senses. Even if the ancient Wendigo tried to hide itself from his sight, it would not be able to escape his senses. Ethan's silver spear pierced through the monster's chest, creating a gaping hole in its body. Unfortunately, the ancient Wendigo managed to shift its body at the last moment, preventing Ethan from dealing the killing blow to its icy heart that would have ended its life. Even so, the monster received a serious injury, making it howl in pain. Just as Ethan was about to launch a second attack that would end the monster's life, something unexpected happened. The Wendigo, the blizzard, and everything around him disappeared. The young man then found himself in a pitch-black world, facing a devilish-looking man who seemed to be in his late 30s, with light brown hair and green eyes. A mischievous smile hung on his face, as if he was in the midst of pranking someone. "Greetings, young man." The middle-aged man gave Ethan a brief nod before crossing his arms over his chest. "The name is Fortis Dud, and I have appeared to ask you a question. Would you like to join the Order of Ouroboros?" Ethan looked at the man in front of him with a frown. It was impossible for him to not know the man when his portrait could be seen in the common room of Dud Manor. He was none other than Fortis Dud, the founder of Brynhildr Academy, and one of the heroes who defeated the Demon Lord. He was also one of the very few people in the world who had the ability to cast a perfect resonance, allowing him to move unhindered across the entirety of the wizarding world despite him being a dud. "Are you really Fortis Dud?" Ethan asked. The man's mischievous smile widened after hearing Ethan's question. "The answer is yes and no," Fortis Dud replied. "Since you're wearing my ring on your finger, then it means that the real me has already kicked the bucket. Well, that is the fate of mortals, no matter how popular and powerful they are. And yes, to answer your question, I am Fortis Dud, but I am also not him at the same time. I am simply a will that he left behind inside the ring who is duty-bound to ask you this question. Would you like to join the Order of Ouroboros?" The frown on Ethan's face deepened as he continued to gaze at the man in front of him. He could tell that he was in some sort of domain. Fortunately, he wasn't alone in it. Sebastian and his other half were also looking at the person in front of them with calm expressions on their faces. "What is the Order of Ouroboros?" Ethan inquired. "I can't answer that question," Fortis Dud replied. "You'll only get an answer after you join the Order." "Who is the leader of this organization?" Ethan asked. "I can't answer that question either," Fortis Dud smirked. "Basically, any question you have regarding the Order will only be answered once you join it." Ethan sighed. Since the man didn't want to answer his questions, he decided to use a different approach. Although he didn't feel any malice or evil intention from Fortis Dud, that didn't mean that he wasn't wary of him. "And what if I don't join this Order of Ouroboros?" Ethan asked. "Then nothing will change," Fortis Dud replied. "You can live your life the way you want to, just like you have been doing until now." That's it. Ethan was perplexed after hearing Fortis Dud's reply. "You're not going to convince me to join." Ethan gazed at the man in front of him with a solemn look on his face. "You're not going to tempt me with benefits." "And why should I do that?" Fortis Dud tilted his head. "The Order of Ouroboros doesn't force anyone to join it." Ethan took a deep breath in order to regain his composure. The lack of answers coming from the person in front of him was making him unsure about how to proceed. This was the first time he was hearing about this Order of Ouroboros, and he didn't know what kind of organization it was. "You said earlier that you can't answer the questions I asked earlier," Ethan stated. "Then can you tell me the things that you are allowed to tell me?" Fortis Dud chuckled after hearing Ethan's words. Things that I can tell you within my authority." Fortis Dud rubbed his chin. "While I can't tell you anything about the Order of Ouroboros, I can tell you why you are seeing me right now. It's because you have met one of the conditions of the Ring of Morrioghain. However, to make things simpler, let us just call it Morrigan's Ring. The person that this ring recognizes gains the opportunity to become a member of the Order of Ouroboros. As you may already know, Morrigan's Ring has 7 abilities. The ability that you are using right now is the most basic, and that is storage. If you don't ever meet any of the other conditions of the ring, you would only have access to the ability, storage, until the end of your lifetime. But since I appeared, that means that you have managed to clear another condition. As to what that condition is, I can't tell you." Ethan nodded in understanding. He knew that the ring he had acquired was special and had other abilities aside from storage. The professors in the academy called it the Ring of Fortis Dud, but now he discovered that its real name was Morrigan's Ring. "So if I reject your offer now, will I get another chance to join this Order of Ouroboros?" Ethan inquired. "Short answer is yes," Fortis Dud replied. "However, I will only appear if you meet the other conditions of the ring, which is very hard to accomplish. Since the same conditions can't overlap, you cannot repeat the same condition that you did today to make me appear and invite you to join the Order." Ethan could tell by looking at Fortis Dud that the Order of Ouroboros wasn't simple. If he joined it, and the organization's goal was to commit misdeeds, he might regret it for the rest of his life. He pondered for a bit before asking another question. "Can you at least tell me if joining the Order has downsides? Like, will my freedom be restricted?" "You are really pushing for freebies, huh? I like you." Fortis Dud chuckled. He had been observing Uthan since he received the ring from the headmaster of Brunhold Academy. He had seen what the young man had experienced and how much he had grown during his stay in the lands of Alustka. Because of this, he had a very good impression of the boy, so he decided to throw in the freebie that the latter needed. "Your freedom will not be restricted," Fortis Dud replied. "You may do anything you want to do with your life. The Order has been around for thousands of years, and it is a very carefree organization. However, just like any organization, you are duty-bound to do one thing and one thing only." Fortis Dud paused for a bit before looking at the handsome young man with a solemn expression on his face. "You need to protect." Futuz Dud said the thing that Uthan needed to protect. Uthan heard it, but not even a second after Fortis Dud finished the last word, the former felt an intense headache, making him wince in pain. The pain lasted for only a brief second, and yet he had completely forgotten the thing that he needed to protect after joining the Order of Akubaras. Seeing his reaction, Fortis Dud chuckled. It was as if he was finding Uthan's dumbfounded expression very amusing. "Well, as you can see, even if I tell you what you need to protect, you will not be able to remember it," Fortis Dud stated. "Only the members of the Order know of its mission, and any outsiders are restricted from this information." Uthan rubbed his forehead to ease the pain he was feeling. Fortunately, the pain didn't last for a long time and disappeared after a minute. The handsome young man then consulted Sebastian and his other half, asking if they knew about the Order of Akubaras. He wanted to know if his two allies were able to remember what Fortis Dud had said to him. "The Order of Akubaras? This is the first time I'm hearing it," Sebastian replied. "Also, although I remember what that remnant spirit said, I can't tell you what it is. The ring on your hand restricts any information about it." "Fate is such a fickle lady," Uthan's other half sighed. "I know about the Order of Akubaras, but I can't tell you what it is either. However, there is one thing that I can tell you, and that is, there are no disadvantages in joining it." After hearing his other half's assurance, Uthan decided to trust it. "If I join, do you promise to answer all of my questions?" Uthan asked. "Well, as long as it's not a math question, then yes," Fortis Dud replied. "Whoever created calculus should have a mandrake shoved up their butt. Why do they have to make things complicated?" Uthan smiled after hearing Fortis Dud's reply. Just like the founder of Brunhold Academy, he was also terribly weak when it came to calculus. "Very well, I will join the Order of Akubaras," Uthan replied. "Great," Fortis Dud clapped his hands. "Now, please drop your blood in this contact. Don't worry, this contract only has 2 conditions. The first one is that you are not allowed to tell or share with anyone anything related to the Order. The second condition is that you are duty-bound to protect what you must protect. As soon as this contract activates, you will officially be a part of the Order and gain your emblem." Uthan nodded his head and intently read the contents of the contract. Just as Fortis Dud had stated, there were only 2 conditions written in it. After making sure that there weren't any hidden rules or fine prints, he pricked the tip of his finger to produce a drop of blood before pressing it on the contract. A second later, the contract glowed brightly. Uthan then heard a soothing voice inside his head, telling him of a prophecy that might come to pass. "I shall not see a world which shall be dear to me. Summer without blossoms. Cattle will be without milk. Women without modesty. Men without valor. Conquest without a king. Woods without mast. Sea without produce. False judgments of old men. False precedents of lawyers. Every man a betrayer. Every son a reaver. The son will go to the bed of his father. The father will go to the bed of his son. Each his brother's brother-in-law. He will not seek any woman outside his house. An evil time, son will deceive his father. Daughter will deceive." These prophetic words reverberated inside Uthan's head, making him shudder. He didn't fully understand what they meant, but he had a feeling that there would come a time when the things that he had heard would come to pass. The young man then found himself swimming in a body of crystal-clear water. However, his body didn't seem any similar to the body he possessed right now. He felt like he had no arms or legs, but he was able to swim on the water with ease as if he had been born to swim in this magical well that held all the wisdom and knowledge of the world. This scenery then vanished, and he once again found himself in that pitch-black darkness, facing a man who was looking at him with a smile of satisfaction. It took the young man a few minutes to regain his composure as he took deep breaths. He felt as if he had heard something that he shouldn't hear and seen things that he shouldn't have seen. "I welcome you, the Salmon of Mimir, to the Order of Akabaras." Fortis Dud bowed respectfully. "May your wisdom help the Order overcome the obstacles that threaten the thing that everyone holds sacred." After bowing to Uthan, Fortis Dud then snapped his fingers, returning Uthan to the Duthsaka forest. Time came to a complete stop, or so he thought. Actually, time didn't actually stop. However, everything moved extremely slowly, making it seem that time had come to a standstill. "First things first," Fortis Dud stated as he pointed at the Muragan's ring in Uthan's hand. "I will let you know the condition you met that summoned me here." The man smiled in a mischievous manner before pointing at the ancient Wendigo, who was standing in front of Uthan. "Muragan's ring has 7 abilities," Fortis Dud explained. "The first one is storage. This will allow you to store things within a very spacious domain that is as big as a coliseum. The reason I appeared is because you have unlocked the second condition, which is to nearly kill a very powerful monster that has the potential for infinite growth. This ancient Wendigo fits that description perfectly, unlocking the second ability of Muragan's ring, which is capture creature. Take note that Muragan's ring can only hold one creature inside of it. If you wish to capture another creature, you must first release the monster that you have originally captured. There are 5 more abilities, but I will tell you about them some other time. First, let me ask you a question. Do you wish to capture this creature?" Before Uthan could even answer, his other half spoke inside his head. "Capture it," Uthan's other half stated. "I will put it to good use." Uthan knew that his other half only wanted what was best for him, so he nodded his head in affirmation. "Yes, I want to capture it," Uthan replied. Fortis Dud nodded. "Good. Now all you need to do is say the word Uktaratas." Uthan raised his hand and pointed his ring finger at the ancient Wendigo in front of him. "Uktaratas." Immediately, Muragan's ring glowed in a purple light, and the ancient Wendigo transformed into a black mist. This mist then flew towards the ring, as if it was being sucked by a power that it couldn't resist. After the black mist had been fully absorbed, Fortis Dud winked at Uthan and smiled mischievously. "I don't know if you're a good actor, but since you are my protégé, you need to polish your acting skills." Fortis Dud smirked. Nightfall Academy wanted to capture this ancient Wendigo because they wanted to make it their guardian spirit. However, with the blizzard obscuring their vision, no one would know that you have captured it. So it will be best if you pretend that the ancient Wendigo managed to escape and let them go off on a wild goose chase on their own. Also, since you are now part of the Order, allow me to give you some advice. I can sense that there is a powerful monster in this domain. It is not a member of the 3 boss monsters, but it is a perfect fit for Luna, so if you have time, don't leave this place right away and go look for it. Make her tame it or form a contract with it. Of course, whether you find it or not will depend on your luck. However, to increase your chances, you need to find it on the night of the full moon. That is all that I will tell you for the time being. Let's talk again once you are back in the academy." After saying those words, Fortis Dud disappeared and time returned to normal. The blizzard around them didn't stop even though the one that conjured it was already gone. For the time being, Ethan returned to where he was a while ago and stood beside Luna. Although he felt sorry for Nightfall Academy since he stole their target, he didn't regret doing it. After all, he and the most prestigious academy in Grandshire weren't exactly on friendly terms, especially after what they had put him through before entering the legacy domain. The blizzard gradually weakened, but lasted for 15 minutes before completely disappearing. After everyone regained their vision, all they saw around them was destruction. The flames Garnet started had also died down thanks to the snow that melted, but everything around them was now damp. Ethan, who was standing beside Luna, used his left hand to pull her close to him as he scanned the surroundings. The ancient Wendigo might be inside Morrigan's ring now, but the bronze giant snake was still at large. Fortunately, it seemed that the boss monster had taken the opportunity to escape when the blizzard descended, leaving the battlefield and returning to the harrowing desert. Even so, no one lowered their guard and scanned their surroundings just to make sure. Emma even used a scrying spell to make sure that they were truly safe from harm. "I don't see either of the two boss monsters in the surroundings," Emma reported as she approached Ethan. "We are safe for now." Ethan nodded as he looked at his promised one, who was looking back at him with a smile on her face. He couldn't tell if Emma was aware that he had captured the ancient Wendigo or not. However, the assistant librarian, who had reverted back to her old, boorish appearance, didn't mention anything and simply stood a few meters away from him, acting like a loyal subordinate. Luna finally sighed in relief before leaning against Ethan's body, using him as support. Although the sea god's trident had boosted her physical and mental abilities, it didn't change the fact that the damage had been done and that she was physically and mentally drained. Seeing how weak she looked, Ethan felt an ache in his heart. He wrapped his arms around her, assuring her that everything was going to be fine. Luna nodded before closing her eyes. Ethan's protective embrace made her feel safe and loved. However, now that she was relaxed, she also felt very drowsy. "Hold it in for a while," Ethan said softly as he took the sea god's trident from her hand. "Let's look for a safe place for you to rest." "MMM," Luna hummed as she allowed Ethan to carry her like a princess. She was really too tired and could barely keep her eyes open. A few minutes later, she finally fell asleep, leaving everything in her lover's very capable hands. A few hours later, when Luna opened her eyes, she found herself lying on a makeshift bed. The first thing she saw was Ethan, lying beside her and hugging her close. After scanning her surroundings, she assumed that she was inside a magical tent given to them by the Academy for this journey. There was a magical lamp at the center of the tent, emitting very faint light that was just enough to allow her to see her surroundings. Ethan didn't want Luna to wake up in complete darkness, worried that it might trigger a panic attack. For this reason, he turned the magical lamp to the lowest possible setting, allowing a subtle light to illuminate everything while allowing people to sleep peacefully without worries. Suddenly, Ethan opened his eyes and looked at the angelic beauty in his arms. "Feeling better?" Ethan asked. "Yes," Luna replied as she burrowed her head in Ethan's chest, feeling his warmth. "Much better." The young man smiled and kissed Luna's forehead while holding her close. "Where are we?" Luna inquired. "We're still inside the Deathseeker forest," Ethan replied. "Everyone set up their camp and took turns as night watch. It's only past midnight, so you can go back to sleep if you want." Luna didn't say anything, and a silence descended upon the tent, lasting for a few minutes. "Ethan, starting tomorrow, let's separate from the others," Luna said softly. "I want to be with you, just the two of us." "I don't mind, but can you tell me why?" Ethan inquired. The angelic beauty in his arms pulled back as she held Ethan's gaze with a determined look on her face. "2 times," Luna replied as she cupped Ethan's face. "I almost died from Wendigos 2 times. During the times when I was about to fall into their hands, I always thought of you. I regret the missed opportunities to tell you how I truly feel." As I stared death in the face, all I could think of was calling out your name and saying sorry. Sorry for not being brave enough to say the words that I wanted to tell you. A tear slid down the side of Luna's face as her lips trembled. "I don't want to have any regrets ever again," Luna said softly. "Ethan, I love you. I want to be with you forever." She then kissed his lips and let her tears fall. Ethan, who felt Luna's determination, returned her advances and kissed her in return. Soon, the rustling of clothes echoed faintly within the tent, making Lilith, who was hiding in Luna's shadow, blush due to the scene that was unfolding right in front of her eyes. Part of her wanted to stay and watch everything, but this idea of hers became impossible the moment she heard Ethan's words inside her head. "Lilith, make sure that no one disturbs us," Ethan ordered. "Also, place a soundproofing spell outside our tent. Make sure that no one hears anything." "Why, yes, master." Lilith moved in the shadows and slipped out of the tent. She then immediately cast several layers of soundproofing spells around the tent, making sure that no one would be able to hear anything. Fortunately, Ethan's and Luna's tent was dozens of meters away from the others. His protectors also made sure that their tents were set up a few meters away from him so that they'd be ready to protect him, just in case the boss monster returned. Ethan didn't tell anyone that he had captured the ancient Wendigo for 2 reasons. The first was that the fewer people who knew about the matter, the better. He was certain that Nightfall Academy would not sit still after knowing that he had captured their target, creating future troubles. Second, he didn't want anyone to lower their guards because, even without the boss monster, the Deathseeker forest was still teeming with magical creatures that could ambush them in the night. After making sure that the entirety of the tent had been coated with several layers of soundproofing spells, Lilith went to talk to Bridget, Sepharina, and Emma to tell them what was happening inside Ethan's tent. Naturally, the 3 ladies were surprised, especially Emma, who didn't expect that the 2 teenagers would be bold enough to do the deed while others were nearby. Because of this, the 4 protectors stood guard and made sure that no one would disturb their master. All of them knew that this was going to be a long night, and they probably would not get a single wink of sleep until morning came. Disclaimer: sweet and intimate scenes ahead. Ethan slowly, but surely removed all of Luna's clothes from her body. When he was done, the angelic beauty took the initiative to remove his clothes as well. There was even a hint of impatience in her actions, making him feel tingly inside. The young man found his lover's determination quite cute, and it made him fall in love with her all over again. When both of them were bereft of any clothes, Ethan took out his wand and used the remaining magic in his body to create a blob of water, the size of a basketball ball. He then manipulated the water, using his fine magic control to wash both of their bodies. Removing the dirt and grime they got from the battle that took place a few hours ago. Ethan knew that both of them would be more comfortable with their lovemaking if both of them were clean, so he decided to wash both of their bodies, leaving Luna feeling refreshed and revitalized. When he was done with his preparations, he once again used his powers to dry both of them, removing all the water droplets that stuck on their skin. The 2 then stared at each other before Ethan slowly laid her down on the makeshift bed and looked down at her with an affectionate look on his face. "I love you, Luna," Ethan said. "I want to be with you forever." "I love you too," Luna replied. "Please make me yours." Ethan no longer held back and lowered his head to kiss her soft lips. The first lady in Brynhildr Academy whom he had kissed was Luna, so she held a very special place in his heart. If not for her, his power would have never awakened, and he might have remained a powerless individual for the rest of his life. Her support, kindness, encouragement, and warmth were things that he treasured very much. And right now, that beautiful lady who had made his heart skip a beat would finally belong to him. His hands wandered all over her body, groping, pinching, and teasing the places that made Luna's body react strongly to him. Although she had tried to hold back her voice, Ethan's kisses, touch, and whispers of love forced her stifled cries of pleasure to escape from her lips. When the 2 of them finally became one, Luna felt as if she had been born for this moment. It was as if fate had decreed that she meet Ethan in Brynhildr Academy, help him awaken his powers, and fall in love with him. Her heart overflowed with happiness, masking the pain. Pain that signified that she had finally given her chastity to the person she loved. Fortunately, the pain didn't last long, and soon, Luna found herself clinging to the handsome young man, who was starting to make her feel things that she had never felt before. These new sensations made her feel afraid and curious at the same time. However, it didn't take long before these thoughts disappeared from her head as her pleasure-filled sighs echoed inside the tent. It was Luna's first time, and yet she was feeling really good because her partner knew what he was doing. Ethan wanted to make sure that Luna's first experience would be memorable, so he did his best to make the angelic beauty feel loved. A few minutes later, a whimper escaped Luna's lips when she felt something hot pouring inside of her. Ethan released his seed inside her womb, marking her as his woman. The angelic beauty could feel her body subconsciously arching up in order to accept her lover's love in full and his promise of forever. Soon, both of them panted for breath, their bodies pressing against each other. They both understood that they could no longer turn back. Both of them had taken the step to adulthood. They were no longer children playing games. This was the real deal, and both of them were well aware of the consequences of their actions. Even so, Luna wrapped her arms around the handsome young man's body, enjoying the feel of their skin brushing against each other while basking in the afterglow of their lovemaking. "With this, I am truly yours," Luna said softly. "Yes," Ethan replied, planting a kiss on Luna's forehead. "You are mine and I am yours." Luna hummed before giving Ethan a peck on the lips. "I have to apologize to Chloe when we get back. I skipped a few steps." The handsome young man smiled before looking down at the angelic beauty, who had truly become his woman. Luna's body immediately stiffened when she felt that Ethan's member had once again hardened inside of her, making her look up at him. The young lady saw the look of concern in his eyes. It was as if he was silently asking her if her body could handle another round of lovemaking. Luna smiled and nodded her head, giving her tacit agreement to another round of happiness that melted her from the inside out. When morning finally came, Emma noticed that everyone in the camp was stirring up. Because of this, she decided to visit Ethan's tent in order to wake up her master, so no one would know what had transpired inside his tent that night. Emma didn't hesitate as she slightly opened the flap of the tent, intending to check if her master was already awake. There, she saw the handsome young man hugging the angelic beauty, who was sleeping peacefully in his arms. Both of them were naked, making a tinge of red appear on Emma's cheeks. After spending some time with Ethan in the desert, Emma knew full well how wonderful it felt to be held in Ethan's protective embrace. Not only was his body oozing with masculinity, but it also made her feel safe and protected. At that moment, she wished she could swap places with Luna, but she knew that this fantasy of hers would have to wait for the time being. "Master, everyone is awake," Emma said as she lightly shook Ethan's body. A few seconds later, Ethan slowly opened his eyes and looked at his promised one. It took him a while to understand what Emma was saying, and when he did, he simply nodded his head and thanked her for informing him about the current situation. Emma then left the tent and made sure to give her master ample time to wake up the angelic beauty in his arms so that both of them could pull their clothes on. A few minutes later, Rowan headed towards Ethan's tent to check up on his sister. He was very worried about her, so he wanted to make sure that she was feeling all right. Fortunately, Ethan and Luna had finally put on their robes when he arrived. The handsome young man also made sure that no evidence of what had transpired a few hours ago was left behind. Seeing that his sister still looked tired, Rowan thought that she still hadn't fully recovered from her traumatic experience due to the ancient Wendigo's mind control. If he only knew that the handsome young man who was inside the tent with his sister had already taken away her innocence, Rowan might have lost his temper and fought Ethan then and there. Fortunately, he knew nothing, and it would take a long time before he discovered this little secret that his sister wanted to keep from him. "Brother, I want to separate from this group for a while," Luna said. "Ethan, Emma, and I will explore this domain together. I know that you are tasked by Professor Barrett with a different mission, so you focus on doing that. Don't worry, Ethan will keep me safe. Rowan frowned as he shifted his attention to the young man who was holding his sister's hand. After a few minutes of silence, he reluctantly agreed to Luna's request. Make sure to protect her, Rowan ordered. If anything happens to her, I'll make sure that you regret it for the rest of your life. If anyone or anything wants to harm her, they have to go through me first, Ethan replied. The two teenagers stared at each other for nearly half a minute before Rowan snorted. He then left Ethan's tent to look for Henry. Both of them had been tasked by Professor Barrett to eliminate the students who wished to kill them inside the legacy domain. They were two of the strongest students in the academy, and it was up to them to ensure that their teammates would be able to explore the domain without worrying about getting stabbed in the back by their enemies. After everyone had their breakfast, Bridget and Sepharina approached Ethan to inform him that they also planned to travel with him. Since Emma had already informed him about their identities, he decided to agree to their request. Although Luna was surprised that they were going to be accompanied by the dwarf and the elf, she didn't voice any complaints. She trusted Ethan very much and understood that he had his reasons for letting Bridget and Sepharina come with them. Lilith, who had merged with Luna's shadow, couldn't help but blush. She had noticed that the angelic beauty was having difficulty walking, which confirmed her suspicion that Luna was now her master's woman, making her feel envious. Others only thought that she had been injured during the battle, so they didn't say anything and let it go, including Cedric, who had developed feelings for the angelic beauty. Even though he was reluctant to part with Luna and leave her in Ethan's company, Cedric had no choice but to do it. He was entrusted by Nightfall Academy to gather his teammates and capture the ancient Wendigo. He was certain that the boss monster had received serious injuries during their clash, and that it must be weaker than ever before. This was a golden opportunity to catch it, so Cedric decided to focus his attention on his mission first before thinking of ways to get closer to Luna. I'll ask my family for help after we leave the legacy domain, Cedric thought. I'm sure that my parents will be able to think of something. Lillian, who also needed to accompany her brother, could only look at Ethan with regret. Even so, her hands were tied at the moment, so she had no choice but to perform her duty as a student of Nightfall Academy. Nicole and Garnet decided to accompany Henry and Rowan on their journey. Of course, Henry told them the truth about what their mission was. Nicole and Garnet were surprised at first, but they still decided to join his group. They had been hunted down by several students from the other academies, so they thought that it was normal for them to fight back and make sure that they wouldn't be able to hunt anyone from their group again. Don't waste the opportunity we're given to enter the domain and look for treasures and resources, Henry said as he looked at Ethan, Luna, and Emma. We still have 3 weeks left, so make it count. Ethan nodded his head and bid his head prefect goodbye. Now that the boss of the Deathseeker Forest was gone, Ethan decided to explore the other areas of the domain with Luna. And now that they had taken the next step in their relationship, Ethan had no intention of letting her go. Soon, they also left the Deathseeker Forest and headed towards the Jenga Valley. Ethan believed that the monster that Fortis Dud was hinting at could be found there. Since that was the case, he decided to take a look and see if he could help Luna capture the magical beast, who would serve as her protector whenever Ethan was away from her. After leaving the Deathseeker Forest, Ethan and his group headed towards the Jenga Valley, intending to explore it for treasures and resources. According to the headmaster of Nightfall Academy, there were 3 boss monsters within the Legacy Gate. The bronze giant snake in the Harrowing Desert. The manticore, located in the northernmost part of Able Plains. And the boss monster that Nightfall Academy was trying to capture in the Deathseeker Forest. Nero mentioned the location of the boss monster, but he didn't specify what it was because it might cause other academies to steal their target. Of course, the members of Nightfall Academy were still gathering their teammates in order to hunt down the seriously injured ancient Wendigo. which they didn't know was currently trapped inside Morrigan's ring. Before heading to Jenga Valley, Ethan's group rested in Ascot Town, which was located in the Able Plains. They reached it one day after leaving the Deathseeker forest. Truth be told, Ethan was still worried about Luna, and he also wanted to rest a bit after his long journey to meet up with her. He had been traveling almost non-stop with Emma, and he knew that his promised one was also very exhausted from their journey. Having considered this, he decided to rest for 2 days in Ascot Town, wanting to let everyone fully recover from their exhaustion. Bridget and Sepharina were also satisfied with this arrangement. They badly needed rest to recover their spirits since they had suffered a lot when they fought against the ancient Wendigo. And that was on top of searching everywhere for Ethan. Meeting him in Deathseeker Forest was a pleasant surprise, allowing them to accompany their master for the remainder of their stay inside the Legacy domain. Inside the Inn of Ascot Town. "Do I do it like this?" Luna asked. "Yes," Ethan replied. "Just don't bite it, okay?" Luna nodded. After tasting the forbidden fruit, Luna suddenly felt some sense of liberation that she hadn't felt in the past. She was a very shy person and would only open up to people who managed to win her trust. After nearly dying twice at the hands of Wendigos, she realized that life was too short, so she had to live to the fullest, cherishing every day she had with the man she loved. Ethan had no complaints about his lover's sudden interest in lovemaking. She was young, beautiful, eager, and willing to learn the many ways to spice up their relationship. Of course, the handsome young man didn't plan to teach her something too extreme, so he decided to teach her the things that she wanted to know. As usual, Lilith had left the room and used a soundproofing spell to mask the activity going on inside her master's and her mistress' room. Although a part of her wanted to stay, she couldn't possibly do it since she wanted to respect her master's privacy. In the end, she simply rested in Emma's room and asked the seer of the Meredith clan for information about their master that she was yet to be aware of. While everyone in the inn was either resting or drinking in the tavern, Luna was taking the initiative to take the lead and make love to Ethan under his guidance. The handsome young man couldn't get enough of Luna's body, which was as sweet as honey. She was perfect, and she belonged to him. After finishing a round, she whispered in his ears and begged for more. She was like a succubus, tempting Ethan to offer his soul to her in exchange for an unforgettable night. He gave her what she wanted and took her once again to the peak of pleasure. The angelic beauty's body shuddered as he filled her womb with his seed for the second time, making her feel loved and sated. "If I only knew how good this felt, I would have done it with you sooner," Luna said as she rested her head on Ethan's chest. "If that Wendigo ate me, then none of this would have become possible. That would have been quite regretful." "There are no ifs in this world," Ethan replied as he wrapped his arms around her, making her feel safe. "You weren't meant to be eaten by Wendigos. You were meant to be eaten by me." A giggle escaped Luna's lips before closing her eyes in happiness. "Ethan, do you like the changes in me?" Luna asked. "I'm afraid I will not be able to go back to the way I was after I leave this domain." "I love everything about you." Ethan smiled as he kissed her head. "The good, the bad, and the Luna who is very eager to make love with me. I love them all." "Good," Luna replied. "But were you always this good in bed?" "No," Ethan answered. "My first attempt with lovemaking was very clumsy. It took some trial and error before I became decent." "I envy Lily," Luna sighed. "I took your first kiss, but she took the rest." Ethan didn't say anything and simply held his lover close. One of the things that Lily had taught him was that if he was planning to have more than one wife, it was very important to not speak of other women whenever he was alone with one of his lovers. Because of this, he never mentioned Lily's name even once when he was alone with Luna. Even if the angelic beauty was the one who brought the other lady up, he stuck to the guidelines that Lily told him in order to have a good relationship with the ladies that held a place in his heart. Luna, who noticed Ethan's stance, smiled a bit because she discovered that he was also a very considerate person. Despite the fact that she was bringing up the name of another lady during their intimate moment, the handsome young man didn't mention any names and simply focused his attention on her, making her feel loved. A few minutes later, Luna lightly tapped Ethan's chest and looked up at him. She didn't say anything, and yet he could see the hint of an invitation in her eyes. "I thought you were sated," Ethan said with a smile as his hand lightly rubbed her back, enjoying its smoothness. Luna kissed his lips before sitting on top of his waist. "So did I." Once again, the two embraced each other until they were sated to oblivion. "Endure. I must endure. The moment I find a way to escape this place, I will have my revenge. I'll ravage that girl in front of him and make him regret the day he was born. As long as I survive this place, I will have my revenge." Its injuries still hadn't recovered. Its red eyes burned fiercely within their sockets as it gazed at the devilish young man, who was looking at it with a smirk on his face. "I'm sure that you're thinking that you'll have your revenge the moment you escape this place," Ethan's other half sneered. "Unfortunately, this is just wishful thinking." "Who are you?" the ancient Wendigo asked. "What do you want?" "My name is not important," Ethan's other half replied. "What I want is for you to become Ethan's sword and slay those who wish to oppose him." "Very well," the ancient Wendigo replied. "I will serve you and do whatever you want as long as you let me leave this place." Ethan's other half chuckled as he walked towards the ancient Wendigo, who subconsciously backed away. "Okay, we have a deal," Ethan's other half nodded. "Is what you thought I would say, no? Silly creature. Do you think your obvious schemes will work against me?" This time, it was the Wendigo's turn to sneer. "Trying to make me your slave?" The ancient Wendigo's body was immediately covered with dark flames. "You can continue dreaming." "Try." Ethan's other half arched an eyebrow. "I don't need to try. It will happen. You're just a weak monster. What makes you think that you can defy me?" The ancient Wendigo laughed in disdain after hearing the young man's words. "Weak monster," the ancient Wendigo. "Who are you calling a weak monster, you brat? I was born even before you came into existence." Ethan's other half smirked. "It seems that you still don't understand your situation. This form that you are seeing is just something I use because it is convenient, and it allows me to talk to Ethan without scaring him. Now, allow me to show you just who I really am." Ethan's other half turned into a dark shadow that was darker than black. Suddenly, this shadow increased in size, towering above the ancient Wendigo, making the monster shudder. Who are you?" The ancient Wendigo almost screamed after seeing a gigantic being that was hundreds of meters tall, looking down on it as if the ancient monster was just an ant that could be easily crushed if he stepped on it. "I already told you." A booming voice that contained the pressure of a mountain descended upon the ancient Wendigo, making it kneel. "My name is not important. I will give you two choices. Serve Ethan of your own free will or serve him without your will. Now choose." The ancient Wendigo couldn't stop its body from shaking as it looked at the being that was in front of it. As a powerful monster in its own right, it could tell that it was looking at something that was very old and powerful. Although it wouldn't go as far as to say that the creature in front of it was a primordial existence, it was something very close to it and just as powerful. It was as if the ancient Wendigo was looking at the deity of death and destruction, who was just a step away from ending its existence. I will serve you," the ancient Wendigo replied. "I will even give you my true name." If in the past, the ancient Wendigo still thought of revenge, now it's gone, and it understood how foolish that idea was. In the face of absolute strength, its petty tricks were truly meaningless. "I changed my mind," the towering creature said in a teasing tone. "I don't need a servant who has a will of its own. You don't need to tell me your true name because I will bestow you a new one. But first, I will first erase your memory and your will, making you a loyal servant that will obey Ethan's order without fail." "Nu, I beg you," the ancient Wendigo pleaded. "I promise that I will not betray you. I will do everything that you command. Anything, just don't erase my arg. The ancient Wendigo clutched its head as dark mists escaped its mouth and eyes. It felt as if its very soul was being burned in a raging fire pit, stripping it of its memories, will, and personality. A few minutes later, the Wendigo's blazing red eyes turned into white flames. It was like a blank canvas, ready to accept the artist's masterful strokes, giving it an identity that it had lost after its soul was purified. "I will now bestow upon you a name," the towering creature stated. "But I am not good with names. How about you think of a name for me, Sebastian?" The guardian of the city of Zentris rubbed his chin as he looked at the motionless, ancient Wendigo in front of him. He wasn't the least bit afraid of the true form of Ethan's other half because, just like his comrade, his current form wasn't his real form either. Sebastian had merely copied the face of his former master, the Tide Bringer, in order to communicate properly with Ethan. If he made his true form known, then he would be just as imposing as his partner in crime, who had completely subjugated the ancient Wendigo and converted it into Ethan's underling. "How about we name him Daneslafe?" Sebastian said. "I think it has a nice ring to it." "Daneslafe, it is a good name." Ethan's other half, who had returned to copying the handsome young man's appearance, nodded. "Does this name have a meaning?" Sebastian nodded. "Once upon a time, there was a king who possessed a cursed sword. It gives its wielder incredible strength and power. However, there was a catch. This sword can only be drawn for the sake of killing. Once it appears, it must taste blood, or else its wielder will go into a state of bloodlust, which will not stop unless he kills someone." Ethan's other half smiled evilly and gave his comrade a thumbs up. "I like this name. Very well. From this day onwards, your name will be Daneslafe, and you will serve Ethan until you cease to exist. Do I make myself clear?" The ancient Wendigo knelt and bowed its head like a knight bowing to its king. "Yes, my liege," Daneslafe replied. "Good." Ethan's other half snapped his fingers, and a surge of power wrapped itself around the ancient Wendigo, healing its injuries. "I almost feel sorry for Nightfall Academy," Sebastian gloated. "Well, what they don't know won't hurt them." The guardian of the city of Zentris looked at the ancient Wendigo, who had the potential to grow stronger after consuming any magical being, whether it was a beast, wizard, or witch. Ethan was bound to face many dangers along the way, so having a powerful sword meant for killing suited him perfectly. Of course, the handsome young man was still unaware that his other half and Sebastian had already prepared a gift for him. For the time being, the two planned to keep the ancient Wendigo's current state a secret, until there came a time when Ethan would need stronger power to take the lives of those who wished to harm him and those whom he held sacred in his life. Ascot Town was just like any other town in Eastshire. The people there lived perfectly normal lives. During the 2 days that Ethan and his group were there, they conversed with a few locals to get a better understanding of the world. According to them, there were still other lands beyond the sea. However, ever since the manticore that lived at the north of the Able Plains made the cliffs its home, no merchant ships dared to land on their shores. This discovery came as a complete surprise, since everyone originally thought that the legacy domain was closed off from the world. The locals called their island nation Verd Island. Ethan made a mental note of the island's name so that he could do a bit of research about it once they returned to Brynhildr Academy. Truth be told, after spending more than a year in the lands of Alester, he had a vague idea of what these legacy gates were. Of course, since this was his first time entering one, he wasn't sure if his guesses were correct. The majority of people didn't know if the legacy gates only connected them to a closed-off domain or if they were sent to a different timeline, similar to that of a Nexus gate. Ethan believed that legacy gates were similar to a Nexus. The only difference was that the legacy gates would remain open for a month. Even after it closed, it could be reopened again after a month or two had passed, making it a very accessible world. Nexus gates, on the other hand, appeared and disappeared as soon as some people entered them. They were like legacy gates, except they were unstable, making them scarier as the chances of returning to your own time were very small. On the second day of their stay, a group of wizards and witches appeared in Ascot Town. When Ethan, Luna, and Emma saw these newcomers, all of them were surprised since the remaining members of Brynhildr Academy were part of the group. Brock Blackwell, Brenna Rosewood, Odelia Burke, Sabrina Hayden, and Zane Blackbane. Although these 5 people looked haggard and their robes were torn in a few places, their genuine happiness after seeing Ethan's group was obvious. But aside from them, there were 2 other people in the group who looked at Ethan with relief. They didn't belong to Brynhildr Academy, but Emma recognized the 2 of them. How did she recognize them? The answer was very simple. The 2 teenage boys also belonged to the Meredith clan and were, in fact, Emma's cousins. "Have you seen Henry?" Sabrina, who was also a 4th year, asked Ethan. "Did you encounter anyone from the other academies who tried to kill you guys?" Ethan nodded. "Sir Henry is currently with Rowan, Nicole, and Garnet. The 4 of them are currently doing their special mission." When Sabrina heard the words, "special mission," she glanced at the other 4th year of their group, Zane. "Understood," Zane commented. "Are you guys going somewhere?" "Yes," Ethan replied. "We are headed towards Jenga Valley to look for resources." The group of students stiffened after hearing that Ethan planned to go to Jenga Valley. They had just left that place, and the current situation there could only be described with one word: chaotic. Henry, Sabrina, and Zane were tasked to eliminate the members from other academies who were hunting the students of Brynhildr Academy. They were supposed to regroup with Henry and Rowan to do their special mission. However, they came across their teammates, Brock, Brenna, and Odelia, forcing the 2 seniors to escort them to safety. But before they met these 3 students, they were being attacked by the students of other academies. If not for the twins who had protected the 1st and 2nd years, they might have already been killed by their enemies. "Be careful out there," Sabrina said. "Nightfall Academy has declared that the Deathseeker Forest will be their base of operations, so most academies chose the Jenga Valley as the 2nd best place to gather resources. The Harrowing Desert and the Emir Mountains are both dangerous places," Zane commented. "Because of this, very few individuals decide to explore those regions. Now, everyone is staking their claim in Jenga Valley. Our rival academies are also there, so take care of yourselves." Ethan nodded in understanding. "Thank you, seniors. We will now take our leave." Sabrina and Zane nodded before leading their group towards the nearest inn in order to rest. The 2 teenage boys remained and looked at Ethan with smiles on their faces. Although they are clearly still tired from their journey, it was very obvious that they planned to join Ethan's group to protect their master. "What are your names?" Ethan asked the 2, who immediately stood in attention. "My name is Archer," the teenage boy, who had a magical quiver on his back, said. "My name is Ace," the teenage boy, who held a spear in his hand, stated. Ethan nodded in acknowledgement. "Can you still travel?" "We can." "Very well, try to keep up with us." Truth be told, Ethan wanted to order the 2 teenagers, who were older than him by a year, to rest. However, both of them had the "we will come with you no matter what" expression on their faces, making Ethan sigh in his heart. Emma gave her cousins a look of approval because, despite their exhaustion, they were still willing to do their mission to protect Ethan. The assistant librarian had no idea who the Meredith clan sent to assist her. But after seeing the 2 familiar boys, she felt more assured as she knew that both of them were competent warriors. Ethan sat on Luna's broomstick and hugged the angelic beauty from behind. The magic that he got from the fairies had been used up, so he was now wearing a bracelet that served as a battery for his magic powers. However, since he had no magic brooms of his own, he decided to ride his lover's broom so that he could hug her from behind. A few minutes later, 7 people flew in a V formation headed towards Jenga Valley. Luna was at the forefront, while Ace and Archer were at the very back, granting the both of them a leeway to rest. They had no idea what was waiting for them in Jenga Valley, but they didn't really care either way. Ethan was confident that his team would be able to handle any situation that was thrown at them. After all, the people with him were all elites who came from the 4 protector families who treated him as their liege.